Hello and welcome to the Lotto Famenne Ardenne Classic. 8th edition of the race, although we've had a few editions missed. Last year's winner, Ex-Angle of Cofidis, is here to defend his title. Dimitri Claes, Guillaume Boivin and Marina Hofland, the previous winners of this relatively new race. A sunny day here in Wallonia. The race today starting and finishing in Marche in Famenne. A rolling parcours. And an absolutely gorgeous day, around 23, 24 degrees. And there is the long drag to the finish line. The cracking field they've got lined up for this event as well. 5 continental teams, 8 pro teams riding at the second division, and 8 world tour teams, including the man wearing number 1 on his back, Axel Zongl. And also the newly minted European road race champion Christophe Laporte of Jumbo-Visma, who field an exceptionally strong team. Some real fast riders in the mix today. As we look at the signing on earlier on today, the Bingold team. Total Energies bring Edvald Bosenhagen and Anthony Tergis. All smiles at the start. Israel Premier Tech as well. Brought a strong team. Giacomo Nizzolo. Derek G, one of the heroes of the Giro d'Italia. Team Arkea Samsic brought a raft of sprinters. That was Hugo Hofstetter having a conversation. Jenti Berman's a recent winner in Luxembourg, and Luca Mozzato too. AG Tour Citroën bring Stan de Wolf and Mickey Shah as well, riding one of his last races. Oliver and Lawrence Narsson there too. Benjamin Gramay, not quite on the form that he would perhaps like to be, but brings Mike Tiernissen as well. Zongl there, presenting to the crowd. Soudal Quickstep as well. Well, they brought a real hitter team. Casper Asgren, Remy Cavagni, Yves Lampard, Casper Pedersen and Florian Sénéchal. There is the man that won the Tour of Flanders a couple of years ago. UAE Team Emirates by a whisker are the number 1 ranked team in the world at the moment. They bring fast man Pascal Ackermann. Tim Wellens is also there. Dutch road champion Dylan van Baal. And there he is. The first time we've got a look at the brand new kit. One, of course, in the Netherlands last week. An absolute superb race. If you haven't watched that one, make sure you do on Catch Up. Fresh off the back of the raft of wins and the points jersey in the Vuelta. That was Caden Groves. Lotto Destiny, the local team, unsurprisingly get the biggest cheer because Arnaud Delis is here. A man on real form, took his first World Tour win just a few weeks ago over in Canada. It was all smiles. Dries de Bont in conversation. Looked like that was with Mike Tiernissen. A neutral rollout, one of the continental teams moving through to the front. That's the Volker Vessels cycling team. Other Conti teams include Leopard TGT Pro Cycling, Metec Solovat, and Team Corp Repsol. Uno X also bring their development team too, their World Tour team not here, or their pro team should I say, but they bring an interesting development team along. Human Pound Health also in the mix as well. Bolton Equities Black Spoke. Let's have a look at the route, the course that's on offer today. 8 categorised climbs. We do 1 large loop of 118 kilometres, taking in the climbs that you can see, and then we do 3 laps of 24 kilometres on the finishing circuit, including multiple ascents of the Côte de Roy, as you can see. 3.5 circuits taking us up to the finish here. A lumpy parcours. We had a reduced bunch sprint last year. Far worse weather as well. It was a damp, wet day. In fact, it was Arnaud Delis who was looking like he was going to win it. He crashed with 800 metres to go, remounted cyclocross style, and still managed to finish just outside the top 10. A quite incredible feat by the man who must be one of the clear favourites. A great crowd has turned out today to welcome this race along, and the first passage of the finishing line comes at 72 kilometres to go. We'll be joining live pictures shortly. I think it's time to introduce my partner in crime today, Ian Field. Ian, great to have you alongside me again today. And I think it's fair to say that over previous editions of this race, this has to be the best field. It's burgeoning with talent.
It certainly is. It's always one of them where a race doesn't have a huge history, you don't quite know what sort of start list you're going to end up with. And we've ended up with a packed plethora of big names as they enter this kind of tightly packed end of the season for races. I mean, got a whole load of races coming up this week on GCN, and a lot of these riders all participating in these, ending the week with Paris Tours next weekend. So, yeah, a really big week of racing, and it kind of kicks off with this Famenne Ardèche Classic today. So really looking forward to it and looking to see how it's raced this year. You said a diminished kind of bunch sprint last year, and there's enough climbing to certainly whittle things down throughout the race. So depending what the team tactics are from some of the bigger teams, we'll see perhaps an even more reduced bunch sprint today.
Yeah, we saw, I think it was around 30 riders coming into the finish. A few were tailed off at the end. 30 or 40 riders left. A really attacking race. Multiple breaks went away. It all came back together. And it was the Cofidis rider that took it ahead of Amaury Capio of Team Arkea Samsic, who's also here this weekend. Arkea Samsic bring a absolutely cracking team. Difficult to pick who would be their leader because it's just all of the riders that they have picked are very, very fast indeed. You've got Benjamin Gramay as well from Intermarché, Caden Groves from Alpecin de Koenig, Pascal Ackermann moving on to Pastures New after a solid year with UET Emirates, taking another Grand Tour victory at the Giro d'Italia. But no, we'll be joining live pitches as soon as we can. But suffice to say, a stark contrast to the race that I was commentating on earlier on today. A deluge it was in Turkey. We'll watch highlights of that race next week. But into the action now. And it's our first sight of the breakaway that we have. And as you can see, 88 kilometres to go. In around 16 kilometres, should I say, we'll be entering the finishing circuits, looping round. And there is the composition of the break in front. Monk, Bevord, Stensby, Heidemann and Sven-Erik Bistrom. So Habits is also in the mix as well. The gap of 1 minute 52 seconds. Good to see the Uno X development team putting a rider in the mix. And they're a team at a pro team level that have really impressed this season. They're one of the most aggressive teams out there, and I know you've been regularly commentating on a lot of races, and they're always up there in the move, aren't they?
They certainly are. It's kind of the usual characters in this early break, and we see the wind blowing. It is fairly strong today, kind of at 9-10 miles per hour from the southwest. So you see the riders lined out across to the side of the road, allowing the car to come up and give a little bit of protection from that crosswind for their rider there. But we have kind of turned on to that finishing circuit, so it says 3 laps of that finishing circuit, but they do turn on to it a little bit earlier, and so almost kind of do 3 3/4 laps almost. So we actually take in the Côte de Roy 4 times. Should have hit it with 87.7 kilometres to go. Perhaps that ticker just catching up. Perhaps they've just crested that. Before we went live, we got reports of a 4-man breakaway, so perhaps a few more riders have jumped across on the first ascent of that Côte de Roy.
Indeed, and they've actually just readjusted the gap as we're looking at the rider just on the back there from the Metica Solo team, Jordan Habits of the Netherlands, 21 years of age, having all sorts of problems with effectively what's now turned into a parachute on his back. The Musette now acting as a windbreak. Last thing he wants, if our colleague Rob Hales was watching this, it'd be, well, I think he'd have almost turned the television off, but he's got back in contact there. Still a good couple of hours of racing still to go, but an absolutely glorious day. We've had a very, very balmy late autumn. Now, and I can't believe it, Ian, we're already in October. We've got the final monument of the year next week, of course, which you can see in pretty much its entirety on GCN Plus and on Eurosport 2. But I do like these end-of-season classics, I really, really do. Always super aggressive. And there's a lot of riders in pretty decent form too, especially when you look at the likes of Groves, of course, Christophe Laporte, and Arnaud Delis. It's going to be a real clash of the titans come the finish. That's, of course, if it does come back to a group sprint. You just never know.
No, and I think this is the great thing about this course today is if it was raced kind of quite passively, then yeah, definitely a bunch sprint. That final climb, the Côte de Roy on this finishing circuit, 2.3 kilometres in length at 4.8% average, does kick up to 12% in the middle, but it is the sort of climb that those big name sprinters in this race could get over if it wasn't super attacking. But then flip that on its head if Jumbo-Visma or Lotto Destiny or someone really takes it on and smashes it to pieces on that sort of climb, it could get rid of a lot of riders coming into the finish. That final climb comes with 15.7 kilometres to go, so not too long for riders to make their way back, and predominantly downhill once they crest that final climb on the section of the course they're on now, predominantly downhill until round about 1 kilometre to go, so difficult to make your way back on under those sort of conditions.
Yeah, it's as you say, most of the climbing is on one side of the circuit, isn't it? Goes up in a few steps. It's quite wavy, I think, is a good term to use it, looking at the profile here. Sorry about the picture breakup. In stark contrast what we can see here, almost like a runway-esque finish, and didn't really give you a real impression of the drag to the line there. Remember, last year's finish was pretty much a block headwind, and Axel Zongl took the win, went very, very late. It was only with about 75 metres to go that he opened up his sprint. It was I wouldn't call it a drag strip race, it was more of a grind all the way to the line. It was a far colder conditions, and you know what it's like, Ian, there's some riders that can open things up far easier when they're cold, but for other riders you get this blocked feeling, but no chance of that today. It's a glorious day, everybody should be in fine fettle, but it's a different matter, isn't it? Uphill sprinting into a headwind when you've got cold legs, not very nice at all.
No, we don't have the cold weather today, but we do have the headwind once again and that drag to the line. So I expect a similar tactic to occur for the winner today, to come off the wheel late, to try and leave their final kick as late as possible into that headwind, try and leave a little bit of a gap to the rider ahead of them and rush into it on that final drag, which kicks up rather nastily all the way from that sharp right hand corner with around 850 metres to go, drags all the way to the line, and yeah, gets a little bit steeper as we approach the line in the last 50 metres or so. So yeah, I'm expecting a similar finish, but hopefully these warm conditions, the sunshine on these riders' backs, no complaints from them today with the conditions.
That's absolutely ideal. 23, 24 degrees here in this beautiful region in the Ardenne, in the Wallonia area. Of course, the Ardenne characterised by the climbs, and this man here, Cyrus Monk, characterised by that astonishingly wonderful hairdo. Is famed for his mullet, is Cyrus Monk, running for the Q36.5 Pro Cycling Team, and he brought a reduced number to this race. Jack Bauer, Tobias Ludvigsen, Fabio Christensen and Joey Roscoff, should I say. But managing to get him out of the move. It's when you bring a smaller team to a race like this, it does help when you can get them out of the move. Good to see Cyrus Monk up in the front, swinging there to the back. And right now, although they have actually stripped out the time gap, this group appears to be working pretty well. And the gap hovering at just over a minute as we get another long look at that drag. Timing so crucial in any sort of sprint, but with a headwind it's all about a game of patience, isn't it, and not going too early, because there's so much more shelter to be had when sat on the wheel in a headwind sprint.
For sure, and it's the kind of thing that they really have to readjust. The good thing about today's race is they're going to ride up this finishing straight a number of times, so 4 times before the real key one up to the win. So they will get a good idea of the steepness of that gradient, get a good idea of how strong that wind is, how it funnels down between the barriers and can sometimes feel a lot stronger than perhaps elsewhere on the course. So yeah, like you say, a huge advantage from being in the wheel, from being able to come off the wheel as late as possible. These big sprinters will be very used to kind of coming off the wheel kind of just under 200 metres to go, but today probably looking at only around 120 metres to go. You want to be coming off that wheel and launching that very final kick to the line, and it's all about timing, like you said.
Certainly is. It would be great to see the kind of form that Caden Groves has taken. I mean, looking back to the performances in the Vuelta, he was really put under pressure. Obviously got, was it 3 or 4 stage wins in the end, but it was the pressure that he was under from Remco Evenepoel in terms of the points classification. And I'm not too sure if you did see the final stage, Ian, in and around Madrid. Normally, they're bunch kicks, bit of a procession, but that was one of the most exciting bike races. And we've got to be honest, there's been a lot of exciting bike racing this year. It's been a golden year, I think it is. We are in a golden era. But that final stage was nothing short of magnificent, wasn't it?
It topped off one hell of a race, didn't it? That final stage, that breakaway occurring, and Groves having to go with it because, as you said, the points classification was up for grabs, and Remco was desperately trying to leverage that jersey off of Caden Groves' back, which he'd worked so hard. And you felt like he'd dominated, but obviously the way the points classification works at the Vuelta, that Remco was able to pick up those points on the hillier stages, on the mountain stages even, and Caden Groves had to fight him all the way to the line, but eventually getting the win on that stage and taking the points classification. So the Vuelta, a number of weeks ago now, so that kind of workload, that huge amount of kilojoules burnt, TSS accumulated, whichever way you look at it, will be kicking in for those riders. As long as they came off the back, not in a hole as such. It's come off of a Grand Tour almost in two ways. Sometimes you've come off after a couple of easier weeks absolutely flying, or it just takes you a little bit longer to kind of dig yourself out of that hole. So it'd be interesting to see how Groves is today.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure they wouldn't have put him in the race. He wasn't feeling good, especially given what he's achieved this year. But he has to be the pound for pound on a flat sprint, the quickest sprinter here without a shadow of a doubt. But on Ardenne, a different proposition entirely. He just seems to get better and better. I think he might even be in double digits this year in terms of wins again. Such a strong rider, quite unorthodox, quite often sprints on the hoods. Different sort of sprint today. You could argue, although Groves, especially with his headwind finish, that Dele could be the favourite. But again, if you ride this sprint smart and you leave it till very, very late, quite often it's not necessarily the fastest man. It's the man that opens up the sprint at the right time. And if there's space as well, depends what team's going to lead this one out. But it should be an interesting one. First, they've got to bring this breakaway of 6 riders back. And if you have just joined us, I'll remind you of the composition of the move out in front. This glorious day as we head ever nearer to the finishing circuits. In fact, in only 8 kilometres time, we will pass through the finishing line for the first time. And then we'll commence 3 big laps of 24 kilometres in and around the lanes and taking 3 climbs of the Côte de Roy, as Ian was talking about earlier. It's quite a long climb, but certainly not that steep. 2.3 k's at 4.8%. But in the breakaway, the man on your screen at the moment, that is Johan Habets of the Netherlands, running for the Midtech Solowatt team. Also in the mix there from Norway, Team Corp, that is Anton Stensby. Rolling through, chucks off the bidon, right at the feet of some lucky spectators there, and the classic flick of the elbow, and then another rider just rolls through, and that is Leopard TGC Pro Cycling's Colin Hedershed of Luxembourg. Looks pretty calm and composed. Not very often we get to see many of these teams, but at this level of race, Conti teams also in the mix. Cyrus Monk there in the silver kit of Q36.5. Been around on the circuit for a while now. Got an interesting lineup as they build their squad. I believe that Jakob Solo is moving across from Israel Premier Tech to join at Q36.5 next year. And here's the most experienced rider in this move, the most decorated rider, Sven Erik Bistrom, former Norwegian road champion, very good time trialist, and a really good rouleur as well. But great for Intermarché to have him at the front. They can just sit back. And a difficult call, I think, for Intermarché. But based on form and what I've seen so far this year, you would imagine it wouldn't necessarily be Gromai today unless his form has actually changed. Because Mike Turnerson is on really good form right now.
He's an unbelievable finish to the season so far, and had a really good Renewy Tour, took out a stage win there. Very strong at the European Championships last weekend, ended up taking 5th place there. So they've brought a super strong team, and it's one of those situations where they've got a number of people on that start list that you'd perhaps highlight for the potential win today. So they're going to work out on the road who's going to have the best legs come the final kind of 250 metres or so. However, that said, they're now on that final kind of 8 kilometres, as you said, back to the finish line. They took that right-hand turn onto this main road, and they pick up a tailwind, and it does drag ever so slightly. So there are some opportunities within the last 10 kilometres to perhaps launch a late attack from one of the teams who doesn't have an out-and-out sprinter, or perhaps just launch something so that their sprinter, their lead-out guys, can sit back ever so slightly and leave that lead out until the very final moment, which is going to be absolutely key. You spoke about how important it is coming off the wheel. If a team is super strong and has the numbers within that final kilometre left, they can drop their sprinter off with the smallest distance possible almost to the line, and that's going to give them the best opportunity. It is that time of the season, like you said, people moving teams, contracts up, some people still in this race without a contract for next year, so big opportunities on the line today.
Indeed. And also opportunities to score points. That's just something I was just reading online earlier on before the start. A little bit of controversy. Lotto Destiny are here, but apparently EF Education Easy Post were refused an entry to this race, apparently, which is quite a strange one, due to the relegation battle last year. There's some sort of residual political thing going on there, but quite an interesting one here. But no, looking at the rankings as we get towards the end of the year, we've still got another 2 seasons left, of course, before the 2 teams are relegated from the World Tour and 2 pro teams actually move up, although that could actually change shortly, depending on the news we get in the next week or so of the potential merger between 2 of the biggest teams in the world, Soudal Quickstep and Jumbo-Visma. No more news on that just yet, but points on offer here today as well. But Lotto Destiny, who were relegated last year, have had a far better season so far this year. I think they're actually well inside the top 10. Israel Premier Tech have had a better season as well. But it is fascinating, this relegation. So I think it's fair to say, Ian, that a lot of teams were almost hunting in packs last year, and it definitely affected the style of racing, didn't it? Rather than go for the win because of the way the points were distributed, and that has been amended quite severely, actually. There's a lot more points for the bigger races and Grand Tour stages, less points on offer here. But it was interesting the way that we saw teams go to races to just get multiple riders up there rather than necessarily going for the singular win, which is quite interesting.
Quite often you were watching the final few kilometres and you were just wondering what a team was doing. It's like, why on earth have they not helped their sprinter go for the win today? They've actually ended up with 3 guys in the top 10. And then you sit back and analyse it and you're like, oh, actually, they've picked up a shed load of points today and they've put themselves in a really good position in terms of that overall ranking. So, yeah, it led to some funny situations on the road that looked like from the outset, but obviously super important to stay World Tour or get promoted as it was. And so, yeah, teams did what they had to do, and I think it's up to the organisers. As we see our breakaway coming down that very final steep descent down towards that final corner with around about 850 metres to go. So it's going to be a super fast run down to that final 800 or 900 metres or so. It's going to make it very dangerous with such high speeds, central reservations as well. People are going to be wanting to get a very good position into this final corner, but at least all the riders get a good look at it before the final time.
Definitely, and as opposed to last year, it's completely and utterly dry, not a threat of rain at all. Off that roundabout, they've got that right-hander coming up shortly. A slight narrowing point there, but they really do, as you said, that little bit of a gentle tailwind that was helping along that section. Now they drop down and they will swing right in a little while and then start heading up the drag. And there's quite a narrow technical section through the centre of the town before they emerge out of the other side as well. It does appear that we have slight issues with our pictures. We're only getting pictures from our static cameras at the moment. We saw that one where the riders swung around the roundabout. We've got one on the finishing line here. So as soon as we can get pictures from the motor back, we will give you them, of course. You can just hear the commentator just keeping the fans, the assembled fans, updated. The Belgians absolutely love their racing. And there's the first lead vehicle that goes through. A flotilla of vehicles. Spectators eagerly craning their necks for a view of the riders. They're still a couple of kilometres away as they start weaving their way through the town. But yeah, that break, again, last information we had was around a minute. So 70. So I think that clearly it's not quite 72 k's to go, unless the ticker's slightly out, because this is the 800-metre long drag to the line. You can see, maybe you can get a sense of the gradient. They go through the town, they've just come out of that right-hander. Just there was where Arnaud Delis last year crashed, remounted, hopped back on his bike. You'd have been proud. He obviously a former exceptionally gifted cyclocross rider. It was quite amazing. He laid the bike down, but lost his bike, picked it up, hopped on, and was still in the bunch and still managed to get 15th. It was so impressive, but it was very strung out coming into that final corner. But this is where the gradient now starts to pick up.
It certainly does, and it'll be really important. We saw on that super fast descent down into that roundabout, then it narrows ever so slightly. We didn't get to see the riders all the way through that section, but it's almost like once you're in position with around about 1 kilometre to go, 1.2 kilometres to go, it's very hard to move up on that section due to it being narrow and so fast. And so coming into that final corner, if you're not in position at that point, unless there's a lull in the action at the front, which, yeah, obviously a kind of situational thing, you're going to really struggle to move up. The only thing you have got as your advantage is that headwind, slowing the front riders down ever so slightly so you can rush into the back of it. I think it's going to make for quite a chaotic, quite a tightly packed final kind of 20-30 metres on the line. One of those sprints where everyone's carrying speed from behind, and those perhaps stronger riders that went slightly earlier. We see now first clip of the bunch.
Yeah, they're a good minute and a half, maybe a couple of minutes behind now, it appears. A couple of riders going the wrong around, having to bunny hop over that little central reservation. Many riders will be aware of this course, but others, they get to sight this for the very first time. And here they are at the bottom of the climb. So it looks like the gap is round about a minute and a minute 20, give or take. A flat front to the bunch generally happens when you've got a little bit of a headwind. For the first time, we can see the massed ranks of UAE team Emirates just in the centre of your screen. Again, a team with a very good lineup. It's got a lot of options. Pascal Ackermann, Michael Bieu, Felix Gros. We've got Alvaro Hodge as well. Still on the comeback trail. An exceptionally gifted sprinter, but I think they'll be protecting Ackermann, so they're using Hodge as a lead out. They've got Matteo Trentin as well, who can also sprint particularly well, especially on a finish like this, and Tim Wellens. So there's no slack at all in the UAE Team Emirates squad, Ian, is there?
Another one of those big teams that have got like a complete roster of hitters. So it'd be interesting to see how this plays out for them. They have options, and I think that's the way you say it for quite a few of the teams today. They have options, so we'll see how this one plays out. But you saw how much of a rush, how much of a big fight there was for that narrowing already, with even kind of 3 laps to go. All the directors would have been telling them how important it is to get into that section first, and we saw that. But then once through it, no one wanted to take it on into this headwind. See, ticker now to 72.2 now for our breakaway. Should have been, according to my road book, 72 kilometres to go as they cross the finish line that time, so perhaps that'll catch up.
Yep, that's what I got. So they're a couple of kilometres out, and there's the gap. Well, I was counting them ahead. I said about a minute and a half. There we go. Confirmed at 1 minute and 48 seconds. For our 6 riders out in front. Peloton currently being led by Jumbo-Visma. Haven't quite, save for the finishes on the start line, got to see Christophe Laporte. That was such an amazing performance the other week in the European Championships, as we hit another one of these little climbs that really punctuates this finishing circuit. 24 kilometres long, but looking at the profile, there isn't that much flat at all. You're either going up or going down, and that sort of terrain does make it quite difficult to control. But right now, all of the big teams seem to have everybody still there. And with these good weather conditions as well, with these less attritional conditions, make the racing far more open. There's a lot more riders that will stay in the mix too. It is amazing how many riders, not quite shut up shop, but it immediately, on the cold and wet conditions, eliminates quite a large proportion of the field. Well, on a day like this, let's be honest, everybody wants to race, don't they? It just puts you in a completely different state of mind, mentally and physically.
especially this time of year as well. It's been a long season for a lot of these guys, and you're coming into the final few races of the season, and motivational levels might be waning ever so slightly, and it's nothing better than getting off the team bus, hitting the sunshine on your back, 23, 24 degrees, not any rain as we see now. Interesting little move now from UAE, perhaps sending one. Well, maybe he's just made his way off the front through the feed zone to collect a bottling piece.
Well, welcome everyone to the Lotto Famenne Ardenne Classic. 188 kilometres through the rolling hills of Wallonia on a beautiful late summer day. Well, it's an autumnal day. We're in October, but look at the conditions. It looks like we're in the height of summer. 23 balmy degrees out there today. A gentle breeze blowing from the southwest to the northeast. And we're now on the finishing circuits. They've already done one large lap of 118 kilometres, and we're now into the first of 3 laps of 24 kilometres that take us primarily up and down. Hardly a flat bit of road, including 3 ascents of the Côte du Roi. We have 6 riders out in front. Intermarché Circus Wanty have Sven Erik Bistrom, the Norwegian, just sat in P3 at the moment in that white and yellow kit. Also there for Q36.5 Pro Cycling is Cyrus Monk. He's there in the silver kit, currently just about to roll through to the front. Team Co-op have Anton Stensby. He's just sat at the back at the moment. Another man in blue from Metec Solowatt is Jordan Habits. One of the continental teams just rolling through on at the outside there. Leopard TGT Pro Cycling have Colin Heiderscheid. And the final representative of this breakaway of 6 in that very distinct orange and red kit, just rolling through to the front now, representing the Uno X Dare development team, is Carl Frederick Bivort, just rolling through to the front now. They've got a lead of around 1 3/4 minutes at the moment, 69.8 Ks to go. And we have a absolutely stellar field here. 8 World Tour teams, 8 pro teams and 5 continental teams, including some of the finest fast men in the world. Christophe Laporte is here for Jumbo-Visma. He's now in the white, gold and blue as the newly minted European champion. Took that title only a week ago. UAE Team Emirates bring Pascal Ackermann, Tim Wellens, Matteo Trentin, Soudal Quickstep. Another star-studded team, Casper Asgreen, Jimmy Cavagna, Yves Lampard, Casper Pedersen, Florian Seneschal, Derek G, Giacomo Nizzolo from Jumbo-Visma, Caden Groves, fresh off his superb ride in the Vuelta for Alpecin de Koning, and the local hero from Lotto Destiny, Arnaud Dely, still only 21 years of age, but continues to make waves. And that was a selfless ride last week, wasn't it, by Dely? I think it's worth reflecting a little bit. Still a long way to go in this racing, but that ride by Arnaud Dely to lead out Wout van Aert, in the end, they could only get the silver medal. It was Jumbo-Visma 1, 2, 3, but some of the numbers I've seen talked about that it's 900 watts for a minute or something at the end of a 230 kilometre race. Just shows how strong this young man is.
It was a phenomenal performance from him in that lead out, in that desperate attempt to bring Laporte back in that final kilometre with those 2 kickers towards the end on the Col de Vam at the European Championships. And looking at the numbers, it was quite interesting. I saw a few comments online wondering whether Wout van Aert should have led out Dely, in fact, because Wout managed to just get to the wheel and almost come up alongside his Jumbo-Visma teammate, but just couldn't quite come around the Frenchman Laporte on the line. Laporte just had a little kick left in the legs over those final kind of 30-40 metres even to the line. So yeah, phenomenal power output. I saw earlier in the season some of the numbers Dely's doing on these very short punchy climbs, just outrageous. Only numbers that me and you can dream of, Matt. And we can see why he's so dominant in certain finishes, and I'd have thought today's is absolutely perfect for him.
No, definitely. Another amazing performance by Arnaud Delis was in his first big World Tour one-day win. That was the GP Cycliste de Quebec. This came from a long way back, and one of the characteristics of a lot of his wins is the fact quite often doesn't really get his positioning particularly well. It's quite an unorthodox style. He hasn't. Some of his big wins have come from a long way back, carrying so much speed, and you wonder if you got him in a good position, he'd be winning. He'd almost get his own time gap. He's sprinting that quickly, but he does have the ability to do a very long sprint, doesn't he? And that finishing in Quebec suited him really down to the ground. And this actually is a similar finish. It's just a long drag. And of the riders that are here, he definitely is the one to beat today, I think.
For sure, it looked like he was playing a computer game out in kind of just literally Pac-Manning past everyone, munching them up all the way to the line. But like you say, my only concern about today is that roundabout, that narrow section, as they come down into kind of the final 1.2, 800 metres kind of to go. If he's out of position there, he's going to have work on his hands. He's obviously someone that has got power in abundance, and with that headwind, possible chance, if you are out of position, to work your way up in that dead straight kind of 850 metres to go. But that is my only concern with him as a sprinter right now, is that positioning, whether it's himself or whether it's a lack of kind of strength in the team, or perhaps cohesion between the lead out men and himself, but something isn't quite clicking in terms of positioning coming into those final few kilometres.
Yeah, it is quite an interesting one. Still, despite that, he's had 9 wins this year, so looking to go into double digits and consistently. His first win of the year was his first race of the year down in Valencia, the GP Valenciana, and has just kept things consistent. Had a reasonable classics campaign as well. 2nd in Omloop, 7th in Kurne, 6th in Droit d'Ors. And then just kept winning all the way through the years. So his consistency is impressive as well at such a young age. But definitely one to watch. But yeah, it's difficult to criticise some of the best riders in the world, but sometimes that's our job, isn't it? Is to look at what they can improve on, and I'm sure that's something that the team are fully aware of. He's got a good squad around him today, but there are some other big teams with good lead outs and exceptionally strong sprinters. So this is going to be exciting. It's a slow burner right now. The gap has come down a little bit to our 6 riders in front. They're now holding a lead of 1 minute and 32 seconds. Again, apologies again for the lack of pictures out on the road. Clearly they're having issues, our production on the ground having issues with the signal from the motorbikes. But thankfully we have got static cameras and a couple of fixed points at key points on the route, with about a K to go, and obviously on the finish line here. So we'll get back to those pictures as soon as we can. And here they are, right on cue. And it is Alpecin de Koning now picking things up at the front. Just over 65 Ks to go. And we are entering this narrow part of the climb of the Côte du Roi. 1 minute and 26 seconds. Unsurprisingly, it is the teams of the big hitters, for want of a better word, on the front, like in the centre of your screen, Intermarché Circus. But they do have Sven-Erik Bistrom up the road, so they don't really need to force the pace. I don't think they'll be really slowing things down either, just making sure that everybody's in a good position. Because this is a pretty narrow technical section. And we did last year see a few little tentative attacks on this one as we wend away further up the climb, and it goes up in a series of steps, doesn't it? It goes up then down, up then down. It's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back as they gradually gain elevation all the way to the top.
It does. This is our only classified climb on the finishing circuit, the Côte du Roi, and it's 2.3 kilometres in length, 4.8% average, maxing out at 12%. Comes around about in the first quarter to the middle of the climb that the riders are on. And perhaps a launch pad. Final ascent comes with 15.7 kilometres to go. But right now, the bunch just raced for position coming into it, and now riding up tempo, like I say, into Marché with the rider ahead. Bistrom, that time of year, off to Groupama FDJ next year. So I just said a good signing for them to bolster their team for next season.
Yeah, It's another interesting move. It is an intriguing, fascinating time of year from August the 1st when riders, teams announce the new destinations. But this year in particular, there is so much going on. I think we'd need a separate program to deconstruct it. And I'm sure they're going to be talking about that on the World of Cycling across on GCN and on the GCN show in the coming days. I do believe Patrick Lefevere has said that there will be more clarity in relation to the current situation on Monday, which is only tomorrow. And I think, like the rest of the cycling world, we wait with bated breath, because the whole landscape of cycling at the very highest level will shift if this proposed merger goes ahead. But it does look increasingly likely that something like that is going to happen. We'll also be finding out the destination of Primoz Roglic as well. That's all hush-hush and under wraps. There's a few suggestions of where he may or may not be going, but it certainly is. I'm trying to think of such an intriguing situation in terms of the transfer market that over the last couple of years, it hasn't been quite anything like it. This is really enormously interesting, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments' time. The dappled light, the canopy of trees protecting these riders briefly from the sunshine beating down on their backs on this late afternoon. It'll be long before they go through the Prem point. Arkea Samsic have also moved through to the centre. They're another team with a lot of options. Anthony Bellmans is there, Amri Capio, David Decker, Hofstetter, Mazzato, all exceptionally good sprinters. And to be honest with you, picking a leader from the Arkea Samsic team is a difficult one. I honestly couldn't tell, because they've got 3 or 4 riders that you would that could easily be a shoo-in to be the team leaders today. And clearly they've got a lot of options in terms of the lead out as well. So another team with real depth.
For sure, and that was definitely one of those teams where I got the old highlighter out and I marked down so many I couldn't work out who I was going to put down as their main man. So yeah, Biermann's winning lately at the Tour of Luxembourg, took out stage 2 there. Mazzato's won as well. Stage 2 in Limousin. Here we go.
Oh, big move here by Kasper Asgreen. I was about to say that Soudal Quickstep have brought a team. They've got some fast riders, but I don't think Soudal Quickstep would prefer to go up against the likes of Laporte, Groves, Ackermann, Delis, for example. And that's why they're trying to do something here. They've opened up the race very early, but it hasn't split. So Kasper Asgreen hasn't had his best of years, but did take that stage in the Tour de France. Would have preferred a good classics campaign, but look at that big surge. Look at what it's done. It's fracturing. There's a big group that have moved clear, but just shows how powerfully he's over the top of the climb. And it is Arkea Samsic willing to do a little bit of riding too. But good policing role being done here by Intermarché Circus. I think that little attack there from Soudal Quickstep straight away, Ian, gives us an indication about the way they're going to want to ride this too. And Total Energy is also getting in the mix now.
For sure, and I think a slightly strange move for me, given no other teammates really towards the head of the bunch. He almost just did that completely on his own, Asgreen, and perhaps put the rest of the team kind of on the back foot ever so slightly. Hasn't actually been able to take a gap on anyone as such. So yeah, bit of a strange one, I would have said, but obviously just shows their intent, shows obviously looking at that start list, not everyone wants to come down to a sprint finish. Yes, most teams do have a sprinter, but surely they can't be that confident going up against the likes of Groves and Delis, like you said. I'm sure there's a lot of teams that want to try and get rid of a few of those pure sprinters before that finish, and Soudal Quickstep definitely one of those teams. They do have Florian Seneschal, they do have Yves Lampard, but we see a replay of there's been a crash at the back. Who's that down there?
A crash. It looks
That's
like
last year's winner.
It's number 1. Well, he won't be. That is a nasty crash. Axel Zongl is down. Is tangled up with one of the riders from Direct Energy. That looked like there was Anthony Tergis as well. He'd have been one of the definite leaders. Would love a circuit like this, but flat out on the front here. Jumbo Visma getting involved. Also with Intermarché. This is that little crosswind section. Dries de Bont also driving hard here as well. One of the riders from UE Team Emirates on his, well, it looks like it's Ivo Oliveira on the wheel of the former Belgian road champion. 106. This action at the front. has drastically reduced the lead of our 6 riders. Very exposed terrain here as Oliveira goes straight over the top.
Very attacking now. This is where we went live earlier, and it was across. We saw our breakaway lined out in the gutter, and the bunch taking full advantage of that slight crosswind at this point. It comes just after the climb, so a perfect opportunity. There will be some people in the red after that climb, as we see now Askren continuing with that kind of attacking, really positive front foot kind of situation. We see Tim Wellens is wise to the move, a number of Jumbo-Visma riders, Mike Turnison, so all the names that we kind of highlighted before the start today, they're all there, very attentive, coming to the fore as things are really kicking off with just over 60 kilometres to go.
Yep, Kasper Askren has been tasked with making this as hard as possible, and there's a few riders out of the back, still a sizable group there. But interestingly, one of the riders who I noticed who did shut the gap, this is one rider that is starting to suffer at the back, Truls Nordhagen of the Uno X Dare development team. This is the damage that's been caused by that rapid acceleration, that change in pace at the front into that wind. If you're not feeling good and you lose the wheel with the pace they're going at the front, well in excess of 60 k's an hour, 70 k's an hour probably down here, it is game over. And 54 seconds as Askren continues to pile on the pressure at the front. And it was actually Caden Groves who isn't too far away as well. He shut down one of the gaps. And Groves, a more versatile rider than you think. We saw that. We've already talked about the final stage of the Vuelta, but earlier in the year I had the privilege of commentating on another one of his wins in the Vuelta Limburg. An awful, awful day in the Netherlands, in the region that hosts the Amstel Gold. And it was split to bits over many, many minutes here, and there was just 2 of them left, and Caden Groves won it. It gave me an insight. This man isn't just a sprinter. But what we're seeing over the last couple of years, even the fastest men in the peloton, who do class as sprinters, are more versatile than ever. They have to be in this modern era, don't they?
I was going to say, are there any pure sprinters left as such? It seems kind of old school, old breed, likes of a Gripe or a Kittel, perhaps those just out and out pure sprinters. And the way the bike races are raced now, you just simply can't be that. You have to be versatile. You have to be able to get over these small climbs, because we know how aggressive the racing is from the off. The entire 188 kilometres today will have been raced. There's no kind of easy days now on the pro calendar. It was quite funny, that first race of the year, no matter where it is, whether it's down in Australia or one of those races in Mallorca, they're racing from the off at that very first day of racing. Just not that long ago there would have been almost training races on the calendar, and the last kind of 20-30 kilometres would have been raced full gas, that kind of situation. But right now, no easy days, no easy races, and so it means the kind of rider that we're looking at, your Groveses, your Philipsens, they're sprinters, but they can do a hell of a lot more, as we saw kind of Philipsen at Paris-Roubaix, etc, etc. So yeah, it makes for a very interesting set of races, because the sprinters can do a lot more than just sprint, like you said.
Exactly. Happy to get stuck in the mix, and we are seeing that more and more often, and it is making for exciting, unpredictable racing. It really is. There's a Lotto Destiny. Oh, that's the unmistakable figure of Guy Lampard is now going. So they want to do this, don't they? I think it's Van Tricht actually who's going clear now, opening up a little bit of a gap, but straight away in the mix. Jumbo-Visma on the wheels there. Also Intermarché making sure that Soudal Quickstep don't get their way, but a little bit of a gap has opened up, forcing several riders to try and shut down the gap. It looks like the rider on the back of this group for Jumbo-Visma is Eduardo Affini. And Affini can, there he is, just moving through on the inside. There's a big powerhouse rider there on this sort of road. 35 seconds now. So if this pace continues, this relentless tempo continues, it won't be very long in before the breakaway gets caught. Just look at this line out. If you're not on a good day, it can be hellish to try and hold the wheels at the back here.
It really can. If you've had a bit of a tough time up over the top of that climb, and then in the crosswind, and then all you're looking for, you want it to slow down, please slow down. Who's on the front? Who's still driving this at 65, 70 kilometres an hour? And they'll have the answer right there. Affini really lining things out, and it's just one long line all the way down to the back. You've got to feel sorry for those guys kind of Yeah, yo-yoing on and off the back at this point with still over 50 kilometres of racing as we're heading back now down towards the finish line. The finish line will come at 48 kilometres to go once again, but yeah, super fast last couple of hours of racing coming up.
After a brief period of relative calm with the break of 6 riders holding the bunch at 1:30, things have really opened up, and they've opened up early. Kasper Asgreen going on the offensive just over the top of the Côte de Roy, and that has provided a real catalyst for some aggressive racing. The momentum of that aggressive racing has seen the lead for our 6 riders out in front tumble to just 25 seconds, yet they continue to roll through. Bevel there rolling through, and again another attack from Soudal Quickstep now. Again, we definitely know what they want to do in this race. They do not want it to come down to a group sprint, that is for sure. But Jumbo-Visma attentive, back on it, shutting down these gaps. Fair play, also in the mix as well, the Uno X development team. They've got a man up in front, so they're making sure that they're constantly represented and not too far away, the blue and red of Lotto Destiny. But interestingly, they're not riding with any of these, although Arnaud Delis is the sort of rider that would happily get involved in the mix. So it's Fred Frieson now moving through to the front.
Yeah, looks like probably Lotto Destiny just want to take a little bit of control of this one. I'm sure that wasn't an attack from Frieson. He just wants to go to the fore and just set a decent pace and just try and calm things down ever so slightly.
Yeah, just get a little bit of control in this race. He's eased up, exactly as you said. Just behind him, Dries de Bont of Alpecin de Koning. A little bit of calm has resumed again. About 7 Ks before we get through to the finish line again, as we continue to lose elevation on the far side of the circuit, but they've lapped very quickly. Constant washing machine effect. They will soon be in sight, in fact. 17 seconds is the lead. Continue to relay through. Very well organised group of riders here. Cyrus Monk just at the back. Another attack now from the narrow silhouette of the Danish rider Kasper Asgreen. He is a man who Brian Holm once described as a human motorbike. So dangerous away on his own. Former TT champion of Denmark, remember. Opened up another little gap straight over the top. It's a Bingo WB.
Interesting move there.
Yeah.
Just 2 riders behind from Intermarché kind of sat up and let that group go, knowing that they had a teammate in that front split. So interesting, perhaps they're not 100% confident in a bunch kick. They're happy for perhaps a small group with one of their many kind of fast finishers to get away. But looking at Soudal Quickstep, the main protagonists here, they've got Asgreen, Cavagna, Tim de Klerk, Lampard, Pedersen, Seneschal and Van Trick. So you probably earmark perhaps a Lampard, a Pedersen, even Casper Pedersen, or a Florian Seneschal being very fast finishers, but not that big bunch kick kind of rider.
Exactly.
So very confident from probably a group of 20, 30 guys, but perhaps not confident from an entire bunch sprint.
I think I agree. I think it would be, for me, I think it would be between Casper Pedersen and Florian Seneschal from the lineup they've got here. But as you say, they aren't quite the same sort of, haven't got the same sort of sprint as some of the runs that we've already described, the Ackermans, Delis, the Caden Groves and the Christophe Laporte. So that's why we're seeing them constantly on the offensive and trying to open up the race early as well. The later you leave it, the less chances you have. So they've been pretty disruptive right now. It's great to see, and it has provided an opportunity. Started off the racing. A lot of other teams now getting in the mix. Big move on the right-hand side, weaving all over the road here. Oliveira now on the outside, having a little look round, and there's a big move straight over the top. So Intermarché again, with Grimay not maybe being on great form, and Mike Turnison, he can sprint pretty well, as we know. I think very much like Soudal Quickstep, they'd rather take their chances from a small breakaway in, and it's again plain to see. They've got in pretty much every single one of these moves, and now they've managed to punt somebody up. This little drag before we get that long drop down into the finish line.
perfect launch pad here for one of these attacks, but going solo probably wasn't what he had in mind. I'm sure he would want a little bit of help, maybe 3-4 riders to come with him to make this kind of a little bit more of a stronger, a little bit more kind of chance of staying away. It's Hugo Page, who's fast finisher himself, but is that him sitting up? Yeah, he's getting the call through. No point kind of trying to get away on your own with still over 50 kilometres of racing to go. I'm sure he was looking to prize a small group clear like we'd seen in the past kind of 10-15 kilometres of attacking racing, but yeah, doesn't want to forge a lonely furrow.
Well, he's been on the radio. It seemed after that little bit of a hesitation, it appears to be dead. Just looking at his body language, the way the shoulders are rocking there ever so slightly, it's suggesting that he's putting a fair bit of force through the bike, but almost was asking, should I continue with this one? Do I need to go? The last thing you want to be is just out on your own. But with a rider dangling in front, all you need is one or two riders in ones and twos, as we classically see, getting across and then a move ultimately moving. And he's committed to this one now. On the tops, on the hoods, just lowers his body a little bit, creating that smaller frontal area as we head towards the finish line. So the breakaway now caught, and the solo rider out in front is Hugo Page, the Frenchman riding for Intermarché Circus. They had a man in the group, the front earlier on, Sven-Erik Bistrom, but after several attacks, predominantly by Soudal Quickstep, the race has opened up again, and with 52.3 k's to go, this man is solo. But I can tell you what, I think he would prefer to have at least a couple of riders with him in.
Yeah, we can see why he hesitated. You never want to go solo with this far to the finish line. It would take, kind of a very strange situation to allow a solo rider to go all the way to the line from over 50 kilometres and out. But obviously got on the radio, asked the question, and the DS obviously told him to continue with this one. I think he's going to ask the question once again. Get on that radio. Are you sure about this? And
yeah, sure?
The positive from this is it's almost like a anticipation of a later move. So he's already up the road, he's already got a small gap, so he doesn't have to go with the next attack. The next attack will come up to him as such. So not a completely pointless move, but yeah, he's got his work cut out for sure.
Not at all. It was just at the point when there was a little bit of a lull in the racing, and he went. Racing seems to move. It's so unpredictable. It goes in phases, doesn't it? There's a lot of activity. But all of that initial activity started off by Kasper Asgreen as would slash the lead to the group in front, to the extent they ultimately got mopped up far earlier, I think, than we thought they would. And now he's gone, and it was just at the moment that everybody hesitated, looked around and thought, actually, let's take a little bit of a breather. But we're now going to drop down, heading back in to Marche in Famenne. And this is where the pace really picks up. We funnel through that a double roundabout right into the town, and then back out the other side and back up the drag. And next time through the finishing line, they will see 2 laps to go. 2 more circuits of this 24k finishing circuit. Briefly in behind the motorbike there. Ooh, looks like he hit a little bit of a bump there. Drops in front of the moto. Great to see a rider in full flight. He is absolutely motoring down here, isn't he? Let's see how he takes this first roundabout. Not on the brakes at all. Carry full speed through that one. And it's interestingly his teammates on the front here. That is something quite interesting. Not necessarily what I expected. Again, clearly for positioning. But you'd have thought they'd have left it to another team to drive through that roundabout. This is very intriguing.
Definitely. We said a lot of teams have options. Perhaps we didn't think about this option of chasing down your teammate, but we do get a good look now of that narrow section coming down towards the finishing straight.
Coming in through Marche and Famenne. This is the narrow little precinct that we've gone through. Greasy last year, even a few little cobblestones, but perfect conditions today. And Hugo Page with a 12-second advantage, been away for the best part of 3 or 4 Ks now. And this is that right turn. And again, a little bit of late crossing by some rather over-eager spectators there, but this is the right turn, carrying a lot of pace into that corner. Oof. took the apex of that corner, nearly took a spectator out. And there is a rider's eye view of this long finishing straight, which kicks up. Page in the lead. I'm wondering if his teammates now have throttled it back a little bit, because that was quite unusual. The way they were careering into that corner full tilt, it doesn't make for good viewing when you've got a man on the front riding as hard as this. That doesn't make for great TV sometimes from a team perspective, but there we go.
I think the only thing we perhaps could say is there's a critical point, that pinch point, so better to be safe at the front, and then perhaps even on that narrowing section they were able to slow the race down ever so slightly. As we see now, them all coming to the front and spreading across the front of the bunch, doing exactly that, just try and slow things down ever so slightly. But I'm still sure he'd want some company out front. And just after the finish line there are a few little ramps which would be an opportunity for a counter-attack to go across to Page. So interesting, keep an eye on things as he makes his way up to the finish line once again.
Here we go to the applause. There's a pretty big crowd that's assembled here now. 2 laps to go for our sole leader. Saying 13 seconds. Let's get the clock on this one. Let's get an accurate reading of the gap for this man as he goes clear. 22-year-old Frenchman from Chartres. Signed all the way through to 2025. Great ride earlier this year in the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. 2nd place there on the stage of the Tour de Limousin this year, so he's in good form. Is Caden Groves, just in the centre of your screen. So around 14 or 15 seconds, and they've knocked it off just a little bit there. Just rolling through was Alain Rio of Team Arkea Samsic. And it's relatively calm here at the moment. Again, with only 1 rider out in front, this is fertile ground for other attacks to come. Just wondering what team is going to be interested. I would imagine on these slopes of these little climbs, we might see Soudal Quickstep go on the offensive again.
Yeah, just after the town, it does kick up a number of times, and we wouldn't call it a climb, they're not classified, but they're definitely draggy roads and a perfect opportunity for someone just to go on the attack, put everyone else on the back foot. Though is a slight headwind still on this section, so until they turn once again, might wait a little while until we see that counter move, but I'm sure someone's eager to get across, as we're seeing this be quite successful, and up to 20 seconds now.
Yep, completely committed now. 20 seconds, as you say, is the gap. Hugo Page, as you say, he is a pretty talented sprinter, and there is some more action from behind, and it's coming from the Uno X team. Also in the mix there, Soudal Quickstep, Lotto as well, and also the first sight of anybody from AG2R Citroën as well. So a little split has been formed. Bingoal latching on to the back of this group. Jumbo-Visma also are represented on this little climb, and that's a nice little gap that's opened up. So lots of teams have different ideas about the way they want or need to win this race. It's not just Soudal Quickstep that want to open up this race. There are other teams in the mix as well, and I think one of them is definitely AG2R Citroën. We've got a good team here with the Nelson brothers. Stan de Wolf as well has been aggressive recently, and they will be a team that definitely wants to try and infiltrate these breakaways, but it has come back together once more.
Soudal Quickstep rider Casper Pedersen going on the attack once again. Interesting to note that the Lotto Destiny rider looked like they were just kind of marking things and not really wanting to work with a small breakaway, so they were up there just marking things. But once again, it's Soudal Quickstep on the front foot going on the attack, as we see Oliveira from UAE trying to jump across now.
Yeah, Oliveira, again, a wonderful rider, good track rider as well. He's punting himself across this gap. So unsurprisingly, all that activity has narrowed the lead to our solo rider out in front, Hugo Page, who looks around, and you will see the group campaigning Casper Pedersen and Oliveira coming across the gap. There's also a rider there, looks like from the team Co-op. There's the crowd eagerly watch to see Page joined by 5 other riders just latching onto the back there, Uno X as well. But this has really opened things up on these little steep climbs. This is going to make some pretty sore legs. 46.4 k's to go. And this is the remnant. This is what happened earlier on. Unfortunately, Anthony Tergy will take no longer part in this race. A graze to his head there. Thankfully, he's up and walking, but came down in that crash. It looks like they were the only two riders to come down in that crash, unfortunately.
Bit of a strange one because it was on the lower slopes of the climb, and perhaps just a coming together of wheels, someone perhaps getting up out of the saddle, and yeah, that move where the back wheel moves back slightly, and perhaps someone looking round on that climb and just not paying attention. Just two riders going down, relatively low speed, although rather interestingly looking down. This is getting very interesting with Dylan van Baarle from Jumbo-Visma getting involved now. So that's the thing. Dries de Bont there as well. Where it went over the top of that real draggy, tough climb, it just means that you know that everyone who is in the front is very strong. And this is what I said about Hugo Page anticipating the move. He didn't have to go with these strong riders on the climb, and he finds himself in the leading group. And Baarle coming through to do his turn. Casper Pedersen still there, so some very strong riders coming to the fore now.
Well, Pedersen is like a Duracell bunny. He goes again, straight over the top, immediately countered. It looks like it's Dries de Bont quite often in these conditions. Unzips his jersey. Such an aggressive, tenacious rider. Always fun to watch just on his wheel. Eduardo Affini, who also glances round. Another gap has opened up. Okay, Samsic trying to sew this one back together. Several little fractures here. This is quite a chaotic point in the race, and a part of the race that's very difficult to control it when you've got multiple numbers of riders attacking.
It certainly is. It's very difficult. Just haven't got the numbers from one team at the front to be able to control things. Lotto Destiny can only see kind of one rider from them towards the front of this, and more groups being fired off the front. A lot of UAE represented at the front in those moves. Matteo Trentin making his way across. Oliveira's still in there. The bunch just catching up now as we head back down onto that main road. We're going to take a turn right, hit this main road, and then we make our way back towards the Côte de Roy once more. They'll hit that with 39.7 kilometres to go. And given the racing has been so hard all the way from the finishing line, it just means that Côte de Roy being 2.3 kilometres at 4.8% average gradient, it's not the hardest climb on the book in the cycling world, but when you've raced hard for a number of kilometres into it, it can completely change things. And as we saw over the top of the climb previously, it drags on, and that crosswind can play a further part in these moves going away. Gamay getting involved now. Caden Groves up there, very attentive as well.
Well, this is riveting stuff, Ian. It really is. This race has exploded into life over the last 20 kilometres or so. Breakaway enjoying that lead of a minute and a half. Asgreen opening things up. And now it's chaos. Lots of teams do not want this to come down to a sprint. That is for sure. And as a result, this is fast and furious stuff. UAE Team Emirates now place a rider on the front to try and get a little bit of control. But again, it's another Dane this time, Casper Asgreen. Oh, no, it's not Asgreen, sorry. Looks like it's Stan van Tricht who's now going as well. Straight away on the wheel. It looks like that's the figure of Edvald Boasson-Hagen latching on to the wheel of the man from Soudal Quickstep. Dries de Bont again going. This is brilliant stuff. These kilometres are ticking by nicely now.
They really are. I think Uno X development team doing a really good job. They always seem to be represented at the front. Tim Wellens moving up for UAE as well, covering this one. So, yeah, time and time again, some very, very strong riders getting involved in these moves. It's going to make for a super interesting last lap and a half. And they're rapidly approaching that Côte de Roy once more now.
Yep, they certainly are. Calm is restored briefly on the front. Boasson-Hagen sits in second position. Also a rider from the Bolton Equities Black Spoke team moving up as well. A team that unfortunately are going to be moving down. Big shame for Bolton Equities. They've had a good season so far. I believe there will still be a team, but on a reduced budget, going back down to continental level. But always make a good account of themselves. And in the centre of the screen on the front now, it is the Italian, the vastly experienced Matteo Trentin, former European road champion. Just trying to see it. Have you managed to spot Christophe Laporte? It's difficult to spot in that white jersey. He's certainly laying low right now, Ian.
I spotted him once coming through the narrowing section on the previous lap, looking resplendent in that blue and white top, and he's even got the custom painted bike to go with it for this race. So, yeah, looking really good, although hiding well while these moves have been kicking off.
I did actually see him on the inside. He's riding at about 15th, 20th place, so where he should be as the road continues to rise again on the Côte de Roy. And there's another attack. It is Edvald Boasson-Hagen, a real strong seated effort. Back in his pomp, this is what this man could do very, very well indeed. And they've got to change and adapt now because they've lost Anthony Tergis. He's crashed out of the race. He's one of their big options. They've got Thomas Bonnet, Fabien Duby. Lorenzo Manzan is a good sprinter, but I think they need to get into a move if they've got any chance of winning this one. That's where Edvald Boasson-Hagen is going on the offensive. And another little group has gone clear now.
All the big teams up there represented. Once again, Tim Wellens covering that move. You see riders just beginning to struggle on the back of this one. Some of the riders from the smaller teams getting really good experience riding against some of the biggest names in world cycling right now. Soudal Quickstep once again driving it up this classified climb.
Yep, keeping that pace nice and high, making the chains very tight. Edvald Boasson-Hagen, after that couple of big efforts, starting to suffer on the wheel here. 41 k's to go. Cofidis also represented. Just look a little bit further down. There is the figure of the European champion. He's gone for black shorts, which is a good option if you ask me. I don't mind white shorts in criteriums, but in road races it should be black shorts. It's the traditionalist part of me, but certainly looking good. Sat on the inside, Oliveira looking around. Wellens just sat on the inside there, and the European champion, the newly minted European champion Christophe Laporte, just sat on the wheel of Tim Wellens as a few riders start to suffer. This is Jonas Rijkaard is being dropped out of the back. Also, Reindert Beuter of Volker Vessel's cycling team also getting dropped. Looks like Rijkaard might be game over for him now. The Belgian try and hold on as long as he can, but the pace that's been set at the front, I don't think he's going to get back by, because this man on the front now, Tim Wellens, definitely trying something. Again, when you look at the way that UAE Team Emirates are trying to ride here as well, I think they might have a couple of options. Ackerman, you would imagine, if it is a sprint, but also to try and get riders up the road, because they have good riders here that can win solo or also from a small group.
For sure, and only the strong coming through now. Oliveira was actually dropped from the wheel of his teammate Tim Wellens. Matteo Trentin, their puncheur, come sprinter, up there as well. Just looking round, looking very comfortable, able to kind of really take in the situation, what was happening behind. But as soon as Wellens sits up, more counter-attacks go. Gamay, Trentin following Gamay as well. So the AG2R Citroën rider taking Jumbo-Visma. Human-powered Health up there as well, one of the other teams who unfortunately will be no more come next season. So yeah, a good time to put in a big ride for one of those riders.
Yeah, I think that was Gage Hecht, the American. Looking pretty good, sat there in third wheel. Benjamin Gramay just on the inside, and there's another move that goes straight over the top. This is Matteo Trentin. Meanwhile, the pace a little bit too hot for Edoardo Affini with 40 k's to go. Jumbo-Visma lose this man, but he'll try and go on over the top. He's got that sort of engine. If he keeps them within 10 or 15 seconds, he should get back in contact. But Trentin now goes clear, and it looks like it's Yves Lampart now trying to get across the gap.
Lampart and Dillier know how strong Matteo Trentin is. You can't let this guy take 20, 30 seconds. Especially, I'm sure he's just trying to anticipate the move, trying to take a small group clear, because he'd be confident from a small group come the finish up that drag. Just looking round, one of the most canniest riders out there, knows exactly what he's doing, just trying to prize a small group clear.
That was interesting, the way that Trentin just didn't even bother to drop onto the wheel there. Sylvain Dillier just on the wheel of the rider from Total Energies. Constant looking around here. But as you said before, very impressed by the way that Uno X development team are riding here. Always have got somebody at or near the head of affairs, covering pretty much every single one of these little splinter moves. But that little group is starting to go clear. AG2R Citroën represented us at the back as well. Looks like one of the Bolton Equities riders is slotted in there too. But 39 Ks to go. So about a lap and a half still to go. But this pace on the climb has really started to thin things out.
Yeah, I was saying earlier how the climb isn't the hardest climb in the world. We see Laporte there coming across as well. It isn't the hardest climb, but they had raced it really fast, really hard, all the way from the finish line, up those drags, all the way out of town. And then there would have been a lot of people in the red by the time they hit that climb. So it's not necessarily just on paper that climb of 2.3 kilometres, but in fact what has gone before it. And what has even come before in this race, 188 kilometres of racing. I just checked, it was 2,875 metres of climbing within this race. And you look at races on the calendar as well, and Amstel Gold this year was only 3,290, so not far off. So it just goes to show how tough this race is. As we see Laporte come up to the wheel of Lampard now, what a strong duo this is at the head of the race.
This is a very strong duo indeed, and Christophe Laporte knows that he'll have an eager partner in crime. Goes straight by, floats across this gap, and this is, well, there's certainly not panic, but there's a couple of teams thinking, okay, this is a gap, well, a group we cannot let go. Well, Dylan van Baal looks pretty calm. Another big counter-attack on the inside from one of the riders from Team Coop. Immediately latched onto the back wheel into Marché 2, making sure that they're covering as much as they can, because that is a premium group that has gone clear. Well, not really a group, a duo, should I say.
That's Hugo Page once again, so just showing how strong he is today. He was solo earlier on this lap, and now feeling like he's recovered well enough to just go on that counter move, as those two riders look like they're just dangling. No, in fact, they're out of sight. I can't even see them on the screen. They've gone up over that small crest just ahead, and really dangerous move with those two riders.
Needs to be a little bit of organisation behind. Lotto Destiny had two riders at or near the front. Still a long way to go, still 37 kilometres, but we're well inside the final 45 minutes of racing, especially at the speeds that they're doing right now, losing the elevation that they've gained to the top of this climb. Another tight left-hander. Beautiful conditions compared to this race last year. But unfortunately, the man wearing number 1, Axel Zongler of France, riding for Cofidis, not too sure if he's got back on, but the way we saw him on the deck didn't look too good at all. But we have two classy campaigners out in front. Christophe Laporte in that brand new European Champions jersey, riding for Jumbo-Visma, and with him for company is Yves Lampard of Soudal Quick-Step. Very interesting stuff indeed. Even Caden Groves now drifting to the front, looking for a little bit of assistance. And he's not going to get any from the man on his wheel, that is for sure. And now this is an ideal situation for Soudal Quick-Step. They'll just keep following these moves, as will Jumbo-Visma. Two of the strongest teams in the race now have, well, I've put the other teams on the back foot. They're on the front foot. All they need to do is to try and stifle these moves, because the engine's up in front. Well, there's some firepower, some combination. They know each other very well, and they're absolutely flying down the other side. 13 seconds is their gap in.
The problem the chasers have got right now, they just simply don't have the numbers, and every time they look round, there's someone from Soudal Quick-Step or Jumbo-Visma coming through to slow things down. So right now that gap's only going one way. Need to get a shot of the bunch. See the strength of Laporte just out of that corner, kicking away from Yves Lampard. So just goes to show how strong that newly crowned European champion is right now, kicking out that corner and opening up a very small gap.
Yep, he's so strong. He really is, and it is Intermarché Circus.
Mike Tennyson on the front.
Yep.
Very strong end to the season, and he realises the danger. This is one of those situations you can't hesitate, because that gap will rocket up to 20-30 seconds. But as I said, the trouble he's got, he's going to look round and he sees the big figure of Tim de Klerk marking things, and even if Tim de Klerk gets out of the way, there's a Jumbo-Visma rider in third.
Exactly, Well, Tim de Klerk on the move next year as well. I believe he's moving across to Alpecin-Deceuninck. Interesting move after many years in the service of the team of Patrick Lefebvre. But right now, there is no organisation behind it. And because of the pace on the climb, what we can't see, there's no real colour blocking at all. It's very difficult to rally your resources and get things organised. So it's just these singular riders going off the front, making it very hard. Another couple of seconds take it back. And team that have missed this one, though, of course, is the UAE Team Emirates. But there's no real combination at all. That's Tim Wellens looks across. It is indeed Caden Groves on the front having a bit of a conversation. But no organisation at all here. What are Lotto going to do? Lotto Destiny with Arnaud Delis. Not seen too much of Arnaud Delis floating around in the peloton. And all these little bits of hesitation are just giving an extra bit of distance to our two leaders out in front. And these aren't two nobodies. These are two of the most decorated and respected riders, specialists at this sort of terrain as well. Laporte with a massive engine. Had a superb season, as have Jumbo-Visma. Arguably one of the biggest demonstrations of power I think we've ever seen from a collective unit. And there it is in full flight, in that brand new custom Surveyor that you were talking about a few moments ago, Ian. And 19 seconds is the lead. So a formidable, potent duo in the lead of this race as we head into the closing stages. This is the 8th edition of the Famenne Ardenne Classic, although only 4 editions have been run due to the COVID pandemic. It's a relatively new race, but a race of real character. 188 kilometres the distance, a big loop of 118 k's, and now we're halfway through the second lap of 24 k's. And the next time through the finish line in the centre of Marche in Famenne, we will take the bell. So, an interesting situation now, Ian. What do you reckon? They've got to get organised as quickly as they can and deploy troops on the front. You don't want to, you have to bring this back. You can't afford even to get a holding pattern with riders as dangerous as that.
No, exactly. And finally we get some colour grouping in the form of 3 Lotto Destiny riders at the front of this one. Frédéric Frisson on the front right now, doing his turn, desperately trying to limit the losses right now, and then with 3 against 2, going all in with over 30 kilometres to go. You'd have thought they would be able to just begin to bring things back ever so slightly on this faster section of the course. But the problem Lotto Destiny have got is if they bring this down to kind of 10, 12 seconds perhaps coming towards that finish line, and those draggy climbs once again, it just opens them up to counter-attacks from the bunch behind. Everyone else recovering right now in the wheels, and they know how important it is to get across to these leading 2 riders. So Lotto Destiny kind of between a rock and a hard place right now. They can't do no right, but just need a little bit of help from perhaps one of the other teams. See Michael Berg moving up from UAE. If just a few of the other teams sent up one rider to help out, and they'd have this situation under a lot more control, because that gap's currently going out further.
It is, and despite the best efforts of a man who's exceptionally powerful, Frédéric Frisson, a good lead-out rider himself. A big motor on board the Belgium. The gap is indeed going out. You'd imagine UAE Team Emirates might put somebody on the front there as well, or perhaps they just prefer to attack over the top and try and get a counter-attack going rather than leave it to a bunch sprint. And that's why a lot of the teams are looking to Lotto Destiny to ride. For Arnaud Delis, a man with 9 wins already on the board this year. So let's just see if that rider from, I think he is starting to ride through. So UAE Team Members are going to use Michael Bieu. His first World Tour TT win, didn't he, in the Dauphiné? Superb performance that was. Such a valuable rider. Just moving up the outside as well now. Kasper Asgreen on our left. It's a washing machine effect as we head back towards this long downhill run before the kick up to the line. Well, that is rather splendid. And what a day to see it. It's a very clean roof. Not too sure what exactly it is, but a beautiful decorative moat. 29 seconds now, so nearly at half a minute. But riders like Frisson and Bjerg, if you get those guys working, they should be able to hold this one. But this is a very dangerous move indeed. Laporte and Yves Lampaert, two very different styles on a bike. The rangy figure of Laporte, then the more pugnacious, compact figure of the experienced Belgian. Yves Lampaert, now 32 years of age, rolls through to the front. This is looking good at the moment, but still with 30 k's to go. Plenty of opportunities to try and bring this back, but some real horsepower being deployed at the front now in.
This is a key moment of the race. They've hit that drag. Yep. They turned right onto that main road and it drags all the way, and Michael Berg comes to the front, whether he can make any inroads. But as a result of that increase in the pace, Frederick Frisson's pulled out the line. Doesn't look like we'll see him back at the front for a good while, if at all. So see how lined out it is behind. It's one of the problems of being almost so strong doing your turn, Michael Berg. But he knows that he needs to bring back this as quickly as possible, because they don't have the sheer numbers to kind of ride this down over the course of 30 kilometres. They just need to bring this back and get this race under kind of some sort of controllable situation.
Yep, he's doing a good job here as Michael Berg. He's taken 7 seconds back, and as you say, such is the force of the pace by Michael Berg. Frisson has dropped away after a long pull on the front. It's how long you can sustain it. It's okay increasing that pace, but quite often you put the other riders behind you've been chasing on the back foot, especially uphill. It's all about trying to keep that pace even, but slightly quicker than the group in front. Sometimes when you really inject a lot of fast pace, nobody can actually come through and the pace dips again. It's about keeping it even and high. Although saying that, you cannot let this lead go out too much more. And there it is. There's the result of that big effort on the front by Frederick Frisson. That is another important, crucial resource for Lotto Destiny that's been jettisoned out of the back. And I don't think he's going to get back in contact, because this pace is going to, well, stay unrelenting. And that's Arnaud Delis on the wheel, actually. So Delis now on the wheel. He's got no teammates left. Well, fascinating stuff. Such is the pace of Bjerg that all of the teammates that Lotto Destiny had near the front have been dropped. That's a Hugo Hofstetter, another one of the fast riders for Arkea Samsic, also being dropped. A real indicator of how furious, how difficult this pace is now in.
It certainly is, and some of those names we had highlighted down as fast finishers being jettisoned out the back of the bunch right now. But Michael Berg just showing how strong he is. But you make that really good point of when his turn comes to the end, perhaps at the top of this drag, and he pulls over, he's put everyone else in a serious pain locker, and they won't be able to come through at a similar pace and maintain it, if at all. I think a good situation for UAE would be, once his turn is done, to be able to fire someone over the top of it in a counter-attack to try and jump across. But the gap would have to be a lot lower than that 22, 23 seconds that we're seeing right now. Finally, Oliveira comes up and Tim Wellens is coming up, so perhaps a few more UAE riders adding some firepower to this chase. Can't see any of their kind of designated fast finishers right now with Hodge, Ackerman or Trentin.
No, exactly. I'm just trying to see. It says Tim de Klerk is there, Casper Asgreen. Nobody riding at the front yet from Intermarché. That's Benjamin Grimay a little bit further back. There's Stander Wolf, a few other riders from his team, AG2R Citroën. But yeah, I haven't seen Ackerman all day, to be perfectly honest with it. Doesn't mean he's not there. He's a canny rider, experienced German. But look at that line. There's a lot of riders that are just struggling to hold the wheel up this long drag. But right now, they're just holding the gap at 20 seconds. But UAE Team Emirates putting a lot of resource on the front. It looks like Tim Wellens is just putting Oliveira back in there. So two riders from UAE Team Emirates. Look at the face of Michael Bjerg here, completely lining this group out. But interesting that Intermarché aren't assisting with the pacemaking. Right now, Lotto Destiny don't have the resource at the sharp end of the peloton too. So Arnaud Delis was looking forlornly around. His teammates are dropping away. He's not going to hit the front. Right now, he's going to have to rely on other teams to try and bring him back into contention. As our flying duo out in front, Christophe Laporte, now 30 years of age, from La Seine-sur-Mer, got with him for company. The Belgian, 32 years of age now, Yves Lampaert, the former national champion from Izegem, leaning into this roundabout. What a duo. a real active part of the race. Both of these riders finding themselves out in front. Still a relatively slender lead, but the peloton do have them in their crosshairs. This is going to be, well, I say, it is going to be crucial. This final lap should be an exciting one as Oliveira leans a flotilla of riders from UE Team Emirates into that right-hander as they thread their way through the centre of the town here at Marche en Famenne. When will the other teams get involved? That's the interesting one here. Because of the way that this race has unfurled over the last couple of laps, it's just utter chaos, isn't it? Over the top of the climb, it's just lots of riders attacking. So it appears as if teams are happy to sit back and just see if the general momentum of the activity just starts to shut this gap rather than commit riders to the front.
Yeah, we end up with this situation, that kind of Group 2 situation, as we call it, as when one group of riders goes to the front and drives it as hard as UAE are. Other teams kind of almost get put off from helping them because they're like looking up and seeing, well, you're strong, you can close this one down. But yeah, when that chase falters, all too often the other riders in Group 2 are hesitant to take over with that chase. So yeah, it would be much better off if one of the other teams could send up one or two riders to help out just to make sure that this does come back. But right now, that time gap just going up and down ever so slightly as this kind of GPS gets a little bit thrown through those tight corners through the town. It looked like Matteo Trentin had moved up into 4th position, so he's still there for UAE on the wheel of Tim Wellens. Just two of those riders doing the work right now. So right now, 2 against 2 as we head up that finishing straight once more for the penultimate time.
What a strong duo it is, but the gap now down to 10 seconds. It is still Mikel Bjerg on the front. Christophe Laporte wipes some of the sweat from his brow as Bjerg stamps on the pedals, coming in now to the final lap of the Lotto Famenne Ardenne Classic. It's been a great race so far. 6 riders went clear, enjoyed a lead of well over 2 minutes, but they were brought back by some ferocious racing. The catalyst, Casper Asgreen, started things off. The gap soon tumbled. And in the last lap, these 2 riders broke clear just over the top of the climb of the Côte de Roy. 1 lap to go now. But it does look as if UE Team Emirates are doing a pretty decent job here, but they're the only team on the front. Oliveira, the Portuguese road champion, driving hard on his wheel. Now it is Tim Wellens. So everybody else, as we said, looking to UE Team Emirates to drive this one. And the field has thinned out somewhat as well here, unsurprisingly, given the ferocity of this pace.
A lot of riders have been distanced on that draggy climb up to the finish, and the pace from UAE being put on. It looked like Mikel Bjerg had disappeared from that chase at the front. So here we go, Tim Wellens on the attack through the feed for the last time. Yep,
Wellens on the offensive. Somebody's trying to shut it down from a Jumbo-Visma here. It looks like it might actually be Tim Van Dijk who's trying to come across. You don't want to give Tim Wellens too much of a gap. Also trying to get in the move as well there. Try and make sure they're in contention. Lotto Destiny. And this is some acceleration by Tim Wellens. It suggests to me that it's not about Pascal Ackermann. They teed things up for Wellens to go straight over the top. And what an acceleration that was. Tim Wellens now joins the trio out in front and has torn the peloton to pieces with that big attack. But it essentially has started the race as we've got a big group of riders up at the front. So what a move that was by Tim Wellens. And Arnaud Delis is there as well in the centre. Arguably the favourite now moves through to the front, and he's happy to ride this one as well in there. So an aggressive rider, always willing when he gets in moves to do the driving too. Also in the mix, we've got Hugo Page again. So Page looking very, very good. It's Perstrand Hagnes actually from Jumbo-Visma in the mix. And also Ismail Premiertech represented too.
Biermans from Arkea Samsic, so maybe answers our question about who's feeling the best out of their multiple options today. But that's a really strong group making their way off the front as Arnaud Delis doing the work. Sometimes you feel he's almost just too strong for his own good sometimes.
Yep, trying to drag this group clear. But to tell you what, I don't think many people will want to carry Arnaud Delis through to the finish. I think they'd rather take their chances, let it all come back together and open up the racing again. The last thing you want to do really with a man as strong as that as the finish is to actually ride with him in a group You want to be distanced, and that's why that group is slowed right down, allowing the remnants of this thinned out peloton to get back in contact. I think there's probably about 50 or 60 riders and no more in that field. But yeah, no real surprise that that little group did not want to ride with Ardenne, but expect more attacks to come. It looks like Yves Lampaert is composed again, ready to tee himself up to react to another move as riders continue to drop out of the back of this fast-moving peloton. Coming into the closing stages now of Famenne, Ardenne, and an attack now from Q36.5. First time we've really seen them in the action in this latter phase. Of course, they had Cyrus Monk in the move earlier on. A little tentative, speculative move there. Again, no real organisation at all. Some of the riders really start to suffer. Casper Pedersen doesn't look like he'll be an option. Also Giacomo Nizzolo as well, the Italian sprinter, former European road champion himself and Italian road champion, trying to latch on to the wheel of the Dane just to give himself another opportunity, because you just never know. We've seen this race come back together, but Wellens goes again, and this time he opens up a gap, and it looks like it's Hugo Page trying to shut the gap once more.
Unbelievable ride from the Intermarché rider Hugo Page. We saw him solo on the previous lap, then he was in another move over the top of the climb in those crosswinds, and right now closing down the move to Tim Wellens. Looks like AG2R Citroën there. Is that Askren maybe coming across as well, and then the Q36.5 rider as well. So we're going to have a group of 5 trying to come together over the top of that drag.
Well, Tim Wellens absolutely flying at the moment. One big attack to jump across to the move, and then he's tried to go here, and he's taken a little group clear with him. Wellens now 32 years of age, of course, is absolutely flying because he won the overall at the Renui Tour. Consistent, second in the time trial, second on the key stage up the Harrisbergen, and is now leading this group of riders. And like you, I have been mightily impressed by Hugo Page. He's been on the offensive pretty much all day long. Rémi Cavagna also in this group. So the Frenchman for Soudal Quickstep has managed to latch onto this group, and it doesn't seem as if Hugo Page wanted to ride there, because that's an interesting group. Most of the big teams represented, they've opened up a big gap, but no real cohesion between the group right now.
Bit of a strange one, yeah. As you say, it was Cavagna, not Askren. He's a very strong rider and would be a big workhorse within that group. Looks like Tim de Klerk just marshalling things behind. Cavagna won the GC at the Tour of Slovenska recently. Hasn't got a contract for next year just yet. So perhaps looking to post a good result today, and obviously, yeah, stick his hand up in the air and try and get a signed contract, because they've got a decent gap right now. If they were to work well together on this main road, they'd open up that gap as they head towards the Côte d'Arroy for the final time. They'll hit that with 15.7 kilometres to go. Page is working now where he's been told from the DS, but maybe Cavagna skipping turns. Who's that from Q36.5?
Fabio Christian.
Christian, the brother of Jan Christian. Fabio won a stage of Tour l'Avenir earlier this year. Super talented bike rider, just showing how strong he is today.
He did. I had the pleasure of commentating. Just flicked his way around that little drain cover there. A very deft bit of bike handling. One of the important skill sets you need as a pro rider. But 9 seconds is the lead as Page, unsurprisingly, just sits at the back of this group. It is Stan de Wolf, and another man is in good form. And but one of the big teams that has missed this one, of course, Jumbo-Visma. And unsurprisingly, they are giving chase, and they will be assisted by Lotto Destiny as well. The man riding for Lotto Destiny is Brent Van Moor. Arnaud Delis is in this group, but Lotto Destiny don't have a lot of resources, so Van Moor moves through to the front. Normally we'd see the man Tim de Klerk riding, but now he can just sit on the wheels and force the others to chase. Black Spoke also in there as well, in the purple jersey, but not assisting with the chase. Only 8 seconds, but we are heading towards the climb. And Brent Van Moor driving hard on this slight downhill section that will take us in for the final time to the long ascent of the Côte d'Arroy. sitting back there as well. Never far from the head of affairs is Matteo Trentin, just on the inside now. So 7 seconds, the gap is slowly coming down, and this group finally starting to work, but it does look as if Hugo Page is starting to suffer here.
Yeah, it's no real surprise given what he's done earlier in this race. So we see Cavagna, TGV Express on the front, the Frenchman. Stan de Wolf coming through next. Fabio Christian said he won a stage of Tour de l'Avenir. He was 8th at the under-23 Euros just last weekend. So, yeah, in some really good form. Showing off today that Hugo Page just swinging ever so slightly at the back on the final wheel. Whether he can add too much to this, but we see now the chase from behind, all out from Jumbo-Visma and the Lotto Destiny riders. Desperate to try and bring this one back before we've hit the lower slopes of the climb, and then we'll take that right hand turn where it narrows, and then that very important section over the top of the climb in those crosswinds could be another potential launch pad for an attack on this final lap. I can't imagine too many of those highlighted sprinters' names are left in the bunch, but we know De Lee is there.
Yeah, De Lee is definitely there, and a good job being done on the front by Jumbo-Visma. They haven't quite brought this group back just onto the bottom of the climb as the road narrows under this canopy, this late afternoon sunshine. We're now in October, and it does look like we're in the height of summer. Well, there's the remnants of the peloton. A few riders just at the back there from Team Flanders Balois. They've got Camille Bonnier also in the mix. A rider that would like this sort of circuit, but hasn't been at the head of affairs too much today. As Tim Wellens hits the front again, Page on his wheel. And the man in trouble now is Stan de Wolf of AG2R Citroën. Clearly the strongest from this group, looks to be the man on the left-hand side in the black and white of UAE Team Emirates. Is he going to try something again? He certainly won't want to take a Hugo Page through to the finish. It looks to me as if this man almost wants to go solo. Stan de Wolf now dislodged from the group. And the gap hasn't come back now. It's Team Arkea Sanzik joining in the fray now. And they still haven't, yeah.
As they rounded that corner, about halfway down the peloton, there was a good grouping of the Jumbo-Visma riders, including Laporte still. But they haven't come to the fore to try and close this one down on the climb. Whether they're just gambling ever so slightly on Lotto Destiny doing the work and perhaps trying to launch something towards the end, or keeping their numbers for that very important final lead out up that kind of drag to the finish. Be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Exactly. We've got about 20 minutes of racing to go. And there we are. There's the stats for the Côte de Roy. 4.8 average percent over 2.3 Ks. This is the final time. After bringing that gap down to just 3 seconds, it has certainly opened up again. Very impressive riding by Fabio Christian here, the young Swiss rider, 21 years of age, leading the group. And now a big attack by Rémi Cavagna here, the former French road champion, French TT champion as well. I don't think there's any doubt that this man will find a team, but I tell you what, right now is putting Tim Wellens to the sword, and the gap continuing to open. Beautiful pedal stroke here, such fluidity in the way that this man pedals. This could be an ideal duo to try and go to the finish here, but Wellens, I think, is right on the ragged edge here.
On the absolute limit, just holding the wheel of Cavagna right now. 1 kilometre to the top of the climb, but then that's not the hard work done. They're into that crosswinds section, which will really suit Cavagna, I'd have thought. But Wellens doing a good job holding that wheel, and the gap looks like it's going out ever so slightly back to the peloton.
It certainly is. Well, the rider's just caught in the middle. Hugo Page of Intermarché just on the wheel of Christian from Q36.5, and it is Lotto Destiny now on the front. UAE Team Emirates infiltrating there. Matteo Trentin just trying to mix up the chase. Arkea Samsic also there, indicating that Jente Burmans and maybe Luca Mazzato are still in the mix. But this is a good little move here. Tim Wellens will certainly work over the top, but right now the man in control, relatively composed face compared to the grimace, the pain that the Belgian is in. Look at the way he just twiddles that gear. Always uses that high cadence style to dramatically efficient effect. Wellens and Cavagna over the top of the climb. But I know Wellens, he will go through. This is a good duo. and it'd be a difficult one to pick in terms of a sprint, but what they need to try and do now is just carve out a little bit more of a lead. But it does look as if Lotto Destiny are doing a pretty effective job at bringing them back.
They are, but they're going super hard to try and close this one down, and whether that's going to leave them without numbers come the lead out for Arnaud de Lee, even if they do bring these two riders back, if they've completely disintegrated as a team, it leaves de Lee on his own, perhaps come the finale of this one, still struggling just to close down those final few seconds. Just goes to show the strength of these two leading riders. Is that de Lee himself on the front?
I think it might be de Lee himself. We've seen him do this in the past, you know. He is so strong. A beast of a rider. Splitting the field in the process. Riders getting spat out of the back, left, right and centre. This is Jacob Scott, British rider, on the back of this group, just holding on the wheels, can't do much more. But it is indeed Arnaud de Lee who's finally brought this little group back together. But the danger here is that somebody else might try and go straight over the top. Until Trentin wasn't too far away there.
Trentin doing a great job, just marking things ever slightly. Dylan van Baarle now goes. Trentin straight onto that one. Knows how dangerous those stealth moves are from the Dutch champion. Seen it time and time again in the cobbled and hilly classics earlier this year. Just goes when everyone else is on the limit and things open up behind. Tim Wellens sits up, lets that group go.
Well, I tell you who is in there, who's been very stealthy so far today as well. Benjamin Gramay is just sat in about 5th or 6th wheel. So Gramay is looking good, perhaps coming into a little bit of form. Hasn't quite been the Gramay of 2022, that's for sure. But the way that he's riding here today suggests that his form could be on an upward trajectory rather than a downward one. And another attack goes. It looks like it's Matteo Trentin this time goes. It is indeed Trentin. Straight over the top, it's Christophe Laporte. Knows he cannot let a rider of the class of Trentin go. Trentin puts it in the gutter. Putting it into the right-hand side, forcing the riders to go round the outside. But look at the way Laporte is dragging himself across the gap with so much relative ease. He's in such good form here. And also a rider from Uno X tucked in to the rather big slipstream of Christophe Laporte. Look at the damage that's been caused behind.
Yeah, into that crosswind section now over the top of the climb. Almost just as hard, if not harder, than the actual climb itself. And the strongest riders coming to the fore. Mike Turnison makes his way onto the back of the group. All four riders showing exceptional form at this time of the year. But AG2R, even Bingol up there, Israel represented at the front of the bunch. Arkea doing a good job at nullifying this latest attack. But look at the size of the bunch now. Probably only around 30, 40 riders left in this race.
Indeed. Absolutely fascinating stuff as they now start to lose that little bit of elevation. Sven-Erik Bistrom still managing to stay in at this lead group. Remember, he was part of the breakaway earlier on today on the front, but now caught is that newly minted European champion Christophe Laporte of Jumbo-Visma. He's got a couple of other riders in this group as well. Dylan van Baarle has already tried a little move. It was brought back very quickly. And Mike Turnison just moves round to the outside. A former teammate, of course, of Christophe Laporte at Jumbo-Visma, but now with Intermarché has been given a lot more freedom and has really embraced that extra freedom, I think it's fair to say, Ian, and is in great form at the moment. But Laporte really forcing it down this slightly technical section, these narrower streets, narrower country lanes, should I say. Not much of an opportunity to move up at the moment.
There certainly isn't. As we see Mike Turnison just open up a small gap as he comes to the front to do his turn. Just trying to get a name check on that Uno X rider. He's doing a phenomenal ride. That is Martin Urenstad. He's shown good form all year, in fact. I've commentated on him a number of times. Showing very good form, although all comes back once together. Just look out for the Israel rider going over the top.
Yeah, Urenstad looking good. They've had a good day so far, Uno X. Always have got riders, well, they had a rider in the move earlier on in the form of Bevort as we look towards the back of this group. In fact, the last man in at this group is Cedric Bullens. And now it is the white, blue and purple kit of Israel Premiership moving through to the front. Can't quite identify who that rider is right now, but the man on his wheel is certainly Matteo Trentin as they continue to force the pace. 11.5 kilometres to go. As Ian was just saying, a drastically reduced peloton now of no more than 40-45 riders, and they'll be approaching the finish very quickly. It's a really fast run into the line. They then filter through that final roundabout on the outskirts of Marche in Famenne, and then they've got a block headwind finish. But look at that, crucially still in the mix and looking good is Caden Groves. Has to be one of the favourites, even with the uphill kick. He's always going to be a potent threat. He's also got with him for company Sylvain Dillier, so at least one teammate there for the Australian.
Yeah, in a good position, but the rider's coming down now, and we are rapidly approaching that hard, long drag where we saw on the previous lap Mikael Berg do so much damage. Trentin on the radio, I'm sure, trying to work out where Tim Wellens is within the group. They need to get together as we see another attack from Intermarché. That one's covered by Dillier. Arkea Samsic onto that one as well. Trentin jumps across, knows how vigilant you have to be in these closing stages as we... Is that Hugo Page again?
It is Hugo Page again. It was definitely Page again on the left-hand side. Sylvain Dillier shuts things down immediately. He'll have a role to play shortly, trying to deliver Caden Groves to a victory. So they need to be vigilant if they want this group to stay together, and that's exactly what they want to do. So Dillier just taking up the reins here and keeping that pace high. As soon as you knock off the pace in a situation like this, it opens up the door for riders to try and counter and go over the top. So the teams now, with sprinters still in the mix here, are going to want to try and keep this pace as high as possible. And just moving up the outside, another key reinforcement for Caden Groves from Alpecin de Koning there. So that's what they need to try and do now, is just try and keep this group, try and stymie any attacks. But the attacks are coming thick and fast again, and it's Kasper Asgreen who goes. No, it's Cavagna, sorry, again. So Remy Cavagna goes.
Yeah, you talked about that small lull in the action, and it offers up an opportunity for another attack to go over the top. They're going to drop down now and then hit that drag on the main road, and that's going to be a really big opportunity for someone that's still feeling good to go on the attack. But right now it's Cavagna once again on the attack.
Yep, absolutely flying is Remy Cavagna. That was a very quick move. But dragging himself across is Tim Wellens just on the back there. And one of the riders from Jumbo-Visma. So three of the big, mighty World Tour teams now out in front. Cavagna looks around.
Timo Roos, I think, from Jumbo-Visma.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the three really big teams represented at the front of this one. Total Energies trying to shut it down, and Dillier on the front of the bunch. He's got a job to do now for Groves to try and keep this one together, or at least keep Groves near the front of this race. Haven't seen Arnaud Dilly for a while. There he is, just down towards the back of the bunch, perhaps.
Yep, he's got Cedric Bullens with him for company, just in front. Arnaud Dilly is there. He's been active, even moving through to the front, shutting down a couple of the gaps. But in a race like this, when you've got dwindling resource, every now and again, you do have to make a little bit of an effort. But Dilly, right now, is looking good. Also there in the mix is Caden Groves. When you think about riders with an exceptionally fast finish, UAE Team Emirates slow things down. Tim Wellens has a look over his shoulder. Sylvain Dillier on the radio. This again could be an opportunity for somebody to go clear. And is that Tim de Klerk on the left-hand side? The tractor himself goes clear on the left. This is great stuff by Tim de Klerk. So, not the man you would have thought to go, but Tim de Klerk has opened up a gap, and, well, who's going to chase this one down? It looks like it might be Dries de Bont. They cannot let a man of this might, this strength, go clear, but Tim de Klerk has opened up a nice gap, and I think it is indeed Dries de Bont, the former Belgian champion from Alpecin de Koning, trying to bring him back in here.
Just like Laporte as well on the wheel of de Bont. So another really strong group of riders. Wellens, that Mike Turnissen as well in there. So the same names keep forcing themselves off the front of the peloton towards the finale of this one. The Jumbo-Visma rider just hanging off the back, whether he's going to try and launch over the top as Wellens now goes on the left-hand side of the road.
Look at Dries de Bont trying to suggest there that everybody ride through. I don't think he really wanted that to happen because Caden Groves isn't there, and there's no way Dries de Bont is going to beat Christophe Laporte in a sprint. So quite interesting. There's 7 kilometres to go now. as this race continues to ebb and flow. Constant attacks of the teams that are left in this race. Nobody has a lot of riders left. Their key riders are going to be used sparingly. But the momentum of this race bringing things back together again as Israel Premier Tech now take things up on the front. Oh, now two runners have drifted clear through amid the chaos. It is now Tim Wellens and Christophe Laporte that go clear. But I tell you what, I don't think Tim Wellens would fancy his chances against Christophe Laporte. Certainly doesn't appear to be riding with him at the moment. No, that is the case. He shakes his head. That's a definite second place. If you ride with Christophe Laporte, I think with the greatest of respect to Tim Wellens there, that is why he shakes his head. He's not going to help Laporte with 6 Ks to go. But Laporte is thinking, well, let's just see what happens here. Looks like Hugo Page has now moved back through to the front. He's having an exceptionally effervescent day. Just under 6 kilometres to go now. The closing stages of the Lotto Famenne Ardenne Classic. It's been an action-packed race so far. It really has. And it is Hugo Page on the front now. The Frenchman riding for Intermarché. He's been fired up all day long. He's been in moves. He's been chasing things down. One of the most active riders here today. Can they sort something out? Can they bring things together? What sort of form is Benjamin Grimay on? Or will it be a day for Mike Turnison from the Intermarché team? There is Benjamin Grimay just going to the north of your screen at the moment. Kasper Asgreen is still there. Can anybody unlock this race? Can anybody go clear now on the run into the line? They've got this drag and then it's that big drop into the finish in.
Certainly is. We've got this drag and then 3 kilometres down to 1 kilometre to go. It's downhill really, really fast in places. 3 kilometres to 1.2 kilometres to go. You're heading in a north-northeasterly direction, so you have got a tailwind on that section, and then eventually you make a couple of right turns, including that roundabout. As we see, is that Dylan van Baarle on the left-hand side of the road going?
Yeah, just upon on the right. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's Dylan van Baarle. Yep, definitely Van Baarle has gone. And I tell you what, straight into the slipstream of Van Baarle is Yves Lampaert. So Van Baarle goes, Lampaert on his wheel, the former Paris-Roubaix winner on the front in an absolutely huge gear. Stander Wolf trying to drag himself across the gap as well. And the gap has opened up here, forcing Dries de Bont to chase. So, good move here. They've got options of Jumbo-Visma, Laporte for the sprint, and one of several riders to try and go clear in the move. But Van Baarle is dragging with him at the moment, Yves Lampaert. And it looks like Dries de Bont has nothing left in the tank. The gap is opening here.
Yeah, just pulled off and left Caden Groves isolated on the front of the bunch, and he obviously doesn't want to drag the entire bunch up. I think Tim Wellens moving up on the right-hand side of the road. He's going to launch. He knows now that you really have to get across, because once this drag is done, it's a super, super fast run down from 3 kilometres to 1 kilometre to go. So this is the time now, the last possible opportunity, I would say, to jump across, get across that move, but it's being shut down by another Jumbo-Visma rider.
Well, this is absolutely fascinating stuff here. It is Tim Wellens. And also latching on is, that's a Luca Mozzato, I think, at the back. He's a very dangerous rider, the Italian sprinter. If this group did go to the finish, Mozzato...
Oh, there's a car.
A real ferocious... Oh, there's a car on the course. What on earth is happening there? That was absolutely awful. That car turned across the peloton. I don't think anybody came off, but that was absolutely awful. Something you do not need to see. It does not need to happen. Well, there needs to be a look at that. A car turning across the front of the peloton and somehow miraculously missing out. Well, there we go. Thank goodness, Ian, nothing occurred there in terms of anybody being taken off. An exceptionally dangerous situation heading into the closing stages of this race, but we've got 3 leaders out in front, and the man trying to drag himself back into contention is Tim Wellens. On his wheel, he's got Stan van Tricht, who of course won't do any work. Also in the mix there as well is Tim van Dijk and Luca Mozzato, but the gap is opened up here, Ian.
It has. Tim Wellens can't close that gap on his own, and he's getting no help obviously from Van Dijk. So yeah, falls to his shoulders, but Dries de Bont back on the front of the peloton. Where is he getting this energy from? I thought he was done. He's got Thomas Bonnet to help him out from Total Energies as well. As Mazzato has been able to jump from that chasing four. Looks like he's going to make his way across on this downhill section.
Well, look at Mazzato getting as aero as he can. 3 kilometres to go now as Dylan van Baarle, the Dutch road race champion, drops onto the wheel of that Standerwolf of Belgium from AG2R Citroën. The lead is only a small one. Yves Lampaert swings over, he takes a look over his shoulder and he'll see the peloton not too far behind. Only about 75 metres, 2.6 k's to go. Stan de Wolf gets as low as he can, keeping things as legal as he can. There you go, Mazzato is the man on the back, just obscured by the Belgian. Second position at the moment is at Dylan van Baarle, but the bunch are bearing down on them and it doesn't look as if Van Baarle wants to ride this one now. It's been a thriller of a race. It's been action-packed all the way, but we're coming in to the final couple of minutes now. The last 2 kilometres now. The arrowhead formation on the front of the bunch. They bank right. One of a couple of riders taken to the pavement there. That's a little bit sketchy as Intermarché take that corner. It looks as if that little breakaway that went clear just a couple of kilometres ago is going to be caught as they thread their way through the centre of Marche and Famenne. What a race this has been. And it still isn't over yet here, Ian.
Certainly isn't. I think that was the powers of Mike Turnison bringing that one back for Intermarché. But right now there's a slight lull. But it looks like Caden Grove still at the front with Dries de Bont for company for a lead out. Moving up on the left-hand side of the road, Total Energy. Gamay still there. Trentin, Laporte. Some very fast finishes still in the mix.
Certainly are 1,200 metres to go. And the place you don't want to be is on that right-hander there. We've got the little shopping precinct still to go. Dylan van Baarle has been caught. He'll keep this pace high. He knows that the bunch is back together as they rattle over this small section of ornamental cobbles. Thread their way through the town. Van Baarle looks. He'll keep pressing on. He'll see the European champion of Christophe Laporte, the newly minted champion, the Frenchman, 30 years of age now, looking for another win as they turn on to the finishing straight. It's still all together here, Ian.
It certainly is. They're going to hit a headwind on the finishing straight, so look for perhaps a rider coming from a little further back, using the wheels ahead of them to gain speed, get the rush on the rider ahead. It drags all the way to the line, around about 500 metres to go now. Dylan van Baarle with the lead out. Mazzato, he's not going to want to do a turn. Look on the left-hand side.
And on the left-hand side, they're taking things up. They're opening up this sprint very, very long. Indeed, Caden Groves is there. It's Raymond Sinkeldam doing a long lead out for Groves. Groves is exposed early, but Raymond Sinkeldam is a master at this, forcing the riders round on to the left-hand side. An amazing ride here by Sinkeldam, the former Dutch road champion, but he can't leave it too early. Just coming up on the other side as well. Well, there is on the left-hand side. It is Arnaud Delis. Delis in the centre. On the right-hand side, it's Groves. Groves, Delis. Delis, Groves. It is Delis. Takes his foot out. He puts it back in again. Oh, what happened? It looks like it's going to be on the line. I think it's Caden Groves. Wow. Arnaud Delis pulled his foot out, re-engaged it, pulled it out again. Lost that key momentum. He definitely would have won if it hadn't been for that awful, awful error. But it is, with subject to confirmation, a frustrated Delis cannot believe his misfortune. But it looks like it was Caden Groves that took the win at Famenne Ardenne. What a dramatic finale.
An unbelievable situation where Delis pulled his right foot out. It looked like then the chain kind of knocked down onto the little ring, so he ended up pedalling with just the left leg in the small ring. Did he hang on to it? We've got to get a replay. He's on the left-hand side of the road. We're going to see now. Looks round. He had a good gap at this point and then pulls his right foot out. The chain's down onto the small ring on the front.
Did he go? I think he got. If he won that one, he won it. Unbelievable. Well, one-legged Delis takes victory. Unbelievable stuff here. The man is that strong. All he needs is one crank arm. I cannot believe what I've just seen. Last year's Famenne Ardenne Classic, this man laid it down with 800 metres to go and still got up to finish in 15th place. This time, he is that strong, he can pull his foot out. Just look at the ferocity of that acceleration on there. He's on a complete and utter another planet. Bear in mind, he's just beaten Caden Groves. The gap falls short by the finish. His foot comes out here. He then has to pedal with one leg. And it looks as if he's actually pedaling with one leg as he crosses the line, as they just close up. And in the end, he gets it by a leg, throws his bike, one leg in, he nearly lays it down on the line. I've never seen anything quite like it. Absolutely incredible stuff.
Utterly ridiculous.
I can't believe it.
I think Seneschal may have got up for second place, taking that from Caden Groves in the end, but unbelievable.
God. Well, I cannot believe what I have just seen. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a riveting race and an extraordinary finale. Ardenne makes it 10 wins in 2023. He just said that his shoe plate has broken. C'est cassé means it's broken. So whether that happened earlier on, if he had a little bit of an off, it looks pretty calm. Well, Ian Field, I've commentated on some bike races, some dramatic finales in my time. I actually didn't think he'd got that one. He'd slowed so much. I thought that Groves had got it on the line from that front-on angle. But in the end, Ardenne somehow has taken the victory here in a race that will live long in the memory. What an absolutely extraordinary unfurling of events here in the Ardennes. Well, he was the out-and-out favourite. We didn't think he'd do it in quite the manner that he did today, but we thought this finish would favour him. But the amount of distance that he managed to open up into a headwind finish against the likes of Caden Groves, who is a top-tier sprinter, make no bones about it, that was nothing short of extraordinary.
It really was, and he came from a long way back as well, and he carried the speed on the right-hand side of the road and just opened up that gap on the rest of the field. We're going to get that drone footage there. You see on the left-hand side of the road as we look at it.
Here he goes,
and the gap that he just opens up, the speed that he's carrying, and then his foot comes out. Obviously that cleat broke in the process, and he managed to just about pedal with just one leg and hold on.
Yep. Just incredible. If he hadn't thrown his bike, a one-legged bike throw as well, he nearly crashed. Here we go again. Just look at that. Again, sprinting on the hoods, making the likes of Seneschal and Caden Groves look ordinary. He then pulls his foot out, nearly crashes into the barriers, lunges, and still takes it in the end. Well, only just about regains balance after lunging with the bike. There we go, Ardenne takes yet another win.
Moi j'ai lancé au 250, mais j'étais dernier. Mais tu vois, t'as le vent de face. Ouais. Et j'ai pris de la vitesse dans les roues.
Well, there we go, confirmation of the win today in the Lotto Famenne Ardenne Classic. Ardenne ahead of Caden Groves, Florian Seneschal, Christophe Laporte, Arnie Marit, Tom van Arsbroek, Dries van Hestel, Benjamin Grimay, Oliver Narsson, and Jacob Scott, a good 10th place. Well, Ian, we're going to be talking about that one for a little while, aren't we?
We certainly are. Literally never seen anything like that, and still take out the win so convincingly.
Well, thanks very much indeed for joining us from me and Ian Field. Hope you enjoyed that one. It's goodbye. For those of you on digital platforms, on GCN Plus and Discovery Plus, all being well, we'll get to see the podium, maybe even a chat with this young sensation who has scored yet another win, moving himself in the process into double digits. So Ardenne sprinting one-legged across the line. We did suggest, didn't we, at the top of the programme, Ian, that based on what we've seen so far this year, the type of finish, that he is that strong, he almost could have got his own time gap. And I think had he continued with his effort, he might have got a whole second between him and the rest of the field there.
Yeah, the gap he was opening up in the last 200 metres was phenomenal. No other way to explain that one. Just the sheer speed of the man in such a tough finale. That draggy headwind finish all the way to the line. And as I said, I'd love to get replay of the final kilometre, because I feel like he came from a long way back, started his sprint a long way out, but just carried his speed up the right-hand side of the road as the riders looked at it. And yeah, unbelievably was able to kind of pedal the last 50 or so metres just one-legged in the small ring and still take out the win. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Indeed. That's back-to-back wins for Ardenne as well. The one that the Circuit Franco-Belge was just a few days ago on the 28th, and now takes the Famenne Ardenne to add to victories in the GP Cycliste de Quebec. He also won the Tour of Leuven, La Pole Normande, stage of the Tour of Wallonia. Also won the Grand Prix de Morbihan, and won the Classica Valenciana, as well as 2 stages of Étoile de Bessèges, en route to 7th overall. I remember commentating on Étoile de Bessèges and the way he was climbing as well. So he's such a versatile rider, but undoubtedly has got one of the biggest kicks in the game. As we look back at highlights of the race earlier on, at a breakaway that went clear with Sven Erik Bistrom in the mix, Cyrus Monk, Anton Stensby, Jordan Habets, Colin Wiederscheid and Carl Frederick Bevort. Once they were caught, things really did open up with about 60 k's still to go, and a significant group of 2 went clear, namely the new European champion Christophe Laporte, also with him for company Yves Lampard. They opened up a maximum lead of around 30 seconds, but there was a real concerted chase behind, primarily being led by UE Team Emirates, who brought the gap down to around 20 seconds, and then launching himself into the gap and dragging several others with him was Tim Wellens. It all came back together despite the best efforts of Alpecin de Koning, emerging from the melee on the left-hand side, taking his own line and opening up a quite ridiculous gap in the process was Ardenne. He undershipped his foot, but somehow had enough pace and enough wherewithal to still take the win. A one-legged win for Ardenne. But just look at that. It's like it's like a cannonball being fired out. I don't think I've ever seen such an acceleration like it. Was almost caught on the line by Sénéchal and indeed Caden Groves, and then put his arms up. And here it is. He's watching it again, almost in stitches. He can't believe it, Ian, can he? And neither can we. I think we're still in a state of semi-disbelief. And that was the reaction from our race winner. It's hardly surprising, is it? I can't believe he actually stayed upright.
I was going to say the first achievement was actually staying upright. Sometimes when you pull your foot, I think he was quite lucky that the cleat broke and he pulled his foot out on the upstroke rather than if it snapped on the down. As we hear from Ardenne now, our winner.
Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé là dans ces derniers mètres?
Ouais, bah je lance. Je pense que j'aurais gagné assez facilement sans ça. Et ouais, je pense que ma plaque a cassé pendant le sprint, ma plaque
de
cale. Donc c'était pas de chance, mais voilà, pour finir c'est quand même la victoire. Donc voilà,
I'm unlucky.
Si j'avais perdu pour ça,
j'aurais encore eu
le seum, comme on dit.
C'est un peu la panique à ce moment-là parce qu'on voit pédaler avec une seule jambe, la jambe gauche.
Ouais, bah ouais, en fait j'ai déraillé, donc j'essaie de remettre de la chaîne et en même temps d'essayer de pédaler. Ouais, je pense les 10 derniers mètres, j'ai su avoir la chaîne sur le plateau et c'est peut-être grâce à ça que j'ai gagné.
Une des victoires les plus originales de votre carrière finalement.
L'année passée, j'étais tombé à 700 mètres.
Was it the most original win of your career?
Cette année, je peux dire que j'ai gagné, donc
yes.
Je pourrais garder le sourire même cette journée-ci.
Qu'est-ce que ça fait de gagner quasiment à domicile, Arnaud?
Ouais, ça fait vraiment du bien. L'année passée, je pense que il n'y aurait peut-être pas eu la victoire, mais j'y serais arrivé pas très loin. Cette année, j'y gagne.
Yeah, it's important for
je gagne, et en plus, voilà, je pense que c'est encore plus. Il y a un gros plateau, il y a beaucoup de gens ici.
Nice to win here with this great finish.
Dans toute la course,
There
on
was some
entendait
big riders here too.
et Axel. Il y avait mon frère qui a fait un top boulot. Et voilà, à un moment, ça a un peu été la panique parce que voilà, on sentait que tout le monde voulait que nous qui prenions les choses en main.
And they supported me.
Beaucoup d'équipiers, mais au final, je suis resté calme. Comme voilà, cette année, j'ai su gagner un peu de maturité.
Lost several teammates, but managed to stay focused.
Et ouais, c'était vent de face. J'ai attendu Je voulais être un peu plus loin,
was pretty composed at the finish.
Québec, et lancer, arriver avec beaucoup de vitesse, parce que voilà, on sent que quand je passe Ardenne Grove, lui il lance et il sait pas prendre de vitesse, et moi j'arrivais vraiment avec beaucoup de vitesse.
Yeah, I think my strategy was a good one today.
Une de plus par rapport à l'an dernier, c'est important.
Ouais, pas spécialement. Comme je l'avais dit en début d'année, c'était surtout la qualité des victoires. Aujourd'hui, c'est qu'une point.
I won one more race than last year. It's not that important, but it's a great feeling to win.
Champion d'Europe, Florent Sénéchal aussi. Donc,
especially with the quality of the field against Sénéchal, of course.
Last question in English.
A really big
word
victory.
To describe this special victory today.
Yeah, it's very special. For two things, because it's a home race and also with a crazy finish. So I think it's a victory I'm remember.
Certainly will be a victory to remember. A victory that is not very often, Ian, a victory makes you laugh, is it?
No.
There's all different sorts of emotions that you apply to a victory, but laughing isn't one of them. But that was one of the most comedic finishes I've ever seen, but testament to the fact that he'd already bought himself enough in a very short space of time, opened up his sprint, about 150 metres to go, but the gap that he created in such a short period of time just underlines the fact that this man is nothing short of a sensation, and year on year is getting better and better. He's already won at World Tour level, and this is just another indication of how strong he is, beating some quality riders in the process today. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure. Well, there's already been a fair bit of pressure on this young man's shoulders. I think they really do see him as the next big Belgian hope as we speak to Florent Sénéchal.
Dans un final de course un peu fou là dans les derniers mètres.
A little bit mad.
Oui, c'était une course assez agitée, mais bon, vu le parcours, c'est normal. Je pense
it was a crazy race today.
Voilà, c'était vraiment une course type puncher, mais ça s'est fini au sprint. Et voilà, c'était assez dense.
I think it was a classic course for the punchers.
Que le groupe avec Lampard.
It was a real tense race. We had Lampard up there. Christophe Laporte too.
Pas de temps mort, pas de répit, mais vous vouliez ce type de course parce qu'il y avait un coureur de votre équipe dans
finished with a really big hard sprint.
Oui, c'est ce qu'on avait dit au départ. On doit vraiment être offensif, mais prévoir une carte pour le sprint. Et moi,
it was a really offensive race.
Je préfère attendre le sprint
car je
me sens rapide en ce
moment. We didn't want to wait for the sprint.
Ça me convient, donc voilà, on a tout misé.
I'm better in the sprint, so I waited for that.
Attaque au dernier tour, mais aussi avec une dernière carte pour le sprint. On a bien fait, ça s'est joué de peu pour la victoire.
Quand Arnaud Delis lance son sprint, il prend quelques vélos d'avance.
We had lots of strategies, but ultimately we lost.
Des choses, vous avez compris, vous, ce qui se passait dans le sprint, dans le feu de l'action?
Oui, quand je l'ai vu me passer, il avait pris de la vitesse et il était impressionnant. Et quand je l'ai vu, je pensais qu'il avait
déraillé,
mais je crois qu'il a cassé sa cale.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Là, c'est le moment ou jamais, mais il a su garder maniaque pour garder son avance et ça s'est joué
composed and focused.
À un cheveu, donc bon, c'est comme ça.
Ça
reste le plus fort. Mais aujourd'hui, il y avait moyen de le battre.
He was the strongest man, so all the best to him. Still a shame not to beat him. I think a rather pragmatic view there from Florent Sénéchal. Again, just a little bit of insight. Clearly was the man to keep back, wasn't he, today? Casper Pedersen fell away a little bit earlier, but Sénéchal, real classics man. But could sit in the wheels, Ian, couldn't he? But I mean, I don't think we can actually criticise Soudal Quickstep at all. They rode a really aggressive race and arguably were the team that really did start things going on the latter stages.
They were, and they played their cards and, yeah, probably just got beaten by the stronger guy on the day. So I think they'll be fairly happy, as we hear now from Caden Groves.
Caden, unfortunately, not win today, but you are on the podium. Can you describe the last K?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a tough finish. Firstly, with the fast downhill run into the roundabout and then 2 corners, some cobbles and then a hard uphill sprint in the headwind. So, I mean, for me, it was, really, really tough out there today. The team did a really good job, and Ramon also did a strong lead out, but with this headwind and slight uphill sprint, possibly we were too early today.
Arnaud Delis was too strong?
Yeah, I mean, he's on some fantastic form, and we've already seen the last weeks he's been dominating this style of racing, and again, today he showed he was, the fastest.
You had a mechanical problem. Did you realize it on your sprint?
Yeah, I did see it. I think he maybe dropped the chain, but I mean, I was already on the limit, and yeah, again, he was too strong and had too much momentum. Thanks.
Exactly. Too strong and had too much momentum. That added momentum just brought in that buffer, didn't it? It really did. We're just looking at the best climber. I think that will be the man from the Mythic Solo Watt team. That should be Jordan Abitz. It certainly is. Taking the prize for the King of the Mountains today. There were several other climbs before the climbs of the Côte des Rois. Although only 2 ascents of the Côte des Rois were given points. So good ride by the man from a continental team. Really important for the smaller teams to get what they can from these races. But here we go. The podium. 3rd place then for Florian Sénéchal of France and Soudal Quick-Step. Good to hear from the Frenchman. Setting himself to the end. But it wasn't to be today. It's still a classy performance amongst some very strong sprinters indeed. Of course, we are in the French-speaking Walloon region, so he'll be a popular rider. Gorgeous, gorgeous day here. Did you enjoy that, Ian? I certainly did. A lot to talk about, wasn't there?
Cracking race in the end. Yeah, just blew up with kind of well over 60 kilometres of racing to go and just non-stop attacking all the way to the finish, and then probably one of the most dramatic last 100 metres I've ever seen.
Yep, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. I don't think Caden Groves, despite him being right on the very edge, as he said, I don't think he realises actually what exactly happened. I think he thought that Arnaud Delis dropped his chain. In fact, it was his shoe pate that broke. But Caden Groves of Alpecin de Koning to be content with the runners-up spot today. He'll be pleased with his season. 3 stage wins and the points jersey in the Vuelta, the highlight of the year for Caden Groves. There could only be one winner. And this young man will be on the podium next as Caden Groves takes a few of the extra prizes. Looks like he's got some bubbly. Big cheer from the assembled crowd here in Marche in Famenne. Expect a big roar here. The 10th win of the year. Arnaud Delis, there's going to be some parties here tonight, that's for sure. Doesn't live too far away. He's making him wait. Almost like a bit of a rock star. Here we go, Arnaud Delis, win number 10. Don't know what he's doing behind that. Maybe making sure his hair's right. Not very often you get chanting like this at a finish, is it?
Certainly not. Very partisan crowd.
Indeed. Well, there, look at the fan club Arnaud Delis, out in force today on this gorgeous autumn day, the 1st of October, and another win for the man from Lotto Destiny. Still only 21 years of age. What more can this man do? Surely. A big step up was the win in Canada just the other week. But he has to have an eye on the classics, I think, with that sort of turn of speed. He's gradually maturing. He's going to have the cycling world at his feet as long as he keeps a level head. He's got a lot of support, the team that's built around him. And he'll be staying for the next couple of years with Lotto Destiny. So there we go, there's your podium. Arnaud Delis, the winner of the Famenne Ardenne, ahead of Caden Groves on the left, and in 3rd place today, Florian Sénéchal of Soudal Quick-Step. What a lovely sight.